yes, they arrived, sold out to the merchant shelves. Minutes after they took out from the bottomless pit, my head was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Oh, have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. Got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Oh, have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. Got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs. It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs, redemption songs.
Hey, what's up, troops? Ops Sgt-Maj with Veterans for Freedom, Jeff Evely, back with you now on this 10th day of August, 2023. The time is flying by, as always. I'll go ahead and say my good mornings before we dive into it here. I have with us in studio the most based of all V4F members, Daryll Inkster. Daryl's putting on a little bash for everybody out there. Well, actually, it's not so little. But there's going to be a festival out there in Manitoba at Daryl's place for Veterans for Freedom and a lot of our allies out there in the freedom movement. So, yeah, it's going to be pretty great. I'm looking forward to meeting a lot of my friends in person. That's a really kind of interesting phenomenon about the times that we live in. I remember we were at the Mackenzie fundraiser and everybody was introducing themselves by their online handle and saying, my real name is this. So I'm expecting a lot more of that, and that's going to be fantastic. I think it was awesome before. And here we have Chris Freestone in with us, ladies and gentlemen. He says first, all right, you win. Chris, thanks for being with us, brother. And I was just mentioning the fundraiser that we had for Mackenzie there in Hamilton, and Chris had the after party. And so I got to spend a lot of time with Chris there while I was in town, and it was fantastic. Thanks for being such a gracious host to us, Chris. It was amazing. So Darlene is here saying, good morning, everyone watching from New Brunswick. Darlene is always with us. Thanks, Darlene. We appreciate that. And Papa Squirrel says cheers, and he's giving us the triple slashy right back at you, brother. Melissa is here saying, good morning, watching from Cortis, Ontario. I don't think I know where that is. But thanks for being with us, Melissa. Good morning to you. Karen is saying good morning. My homie from Cape Breton, James Q, is saying good morning, everyone. Good morning, Jeff. Share. Yes, please share this out. I am the worst guy for not doing that. And this morning, it seemed like I didn't quite push it as hard as I have been lately. So not as many shares going out this morning, but that's okay. You guys will cover me off. I know it. James is here saying good morning. Good morning to you, James. James, I crashed at James's place when we were in Hamilton, and he's going to be joining us out there in Manitoba as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing James. We're going to be commuting from the airport together, actually. So, and speaking of commuting from the airport, here is my other co-commuter, and that's Cindy saying good morning, hearts morning all, and hearts right back at you, Cindy, our most faithful of all watchers. Shannon is here saying good morning right back at you. And Julie is saying good morning, freedom fighters. Good morning, Julie. And let me see. Colleen is with us as always saying good morning, folks. Jane with us as always. Cheers, folks. Thanks for being with us, Jane. And Debbie saying good morning from Tabor, Alberta. Debbie is a very faithful watcher, and special appreciation to the Westerners for being with me so early. Chris Dacey, ladies and gentlemen, he's with us, and he says good morning, very close to Ottawa, and he's giving us the peace hearts and thank you. So yeah, Chris, I wish I had a chance to meet up with you while you're in the East Coast, brother. It's just like so many things going on at the same time. But you missed out, man. You should have made it all the way to Cape Breton. I could have shown you all the most beautiful spots in the country. I mean, I know how it is. We're all doing the best we can, and there's so much going on. And you guys had like a bunch of breakdowns with your camper and stuff like that as well. So anyway, I had a good chat with Chris on the phone there recently, but would have been great to be able to host you in the home of my heart here, Cape Breton, maybe next time. But my mi casa su casa, brother. My door is always open for you anytime you're out this way. Leanne is saying good morning, everyone, and Wazzy over on YouTube is saying morning, folks. Really appreciate all the hard work you're doing. Thank you very much. Yes, it's our pleasure. Thank you for being with us, Wazzy. I don't recognize the name, so thanks. Maybe you're just a first-time commenter and a long-time viewer. I'm not sure. Doings over on Rumble is giving us the triple slashy, right? Slip triple slash at you right there. Doings, and Jim CWY is giving us the triple slashy as well. So good morning, everybody. I think I'm going to go ahead and dive into her here, and let's get a look at what's going on out there. Okay, so here is our philosophy meme for the day, and is it just me, or is that taking a little while to kind of pop up on this stream? But anyway, it seems like there's a little bit of a delay between my screen and the one that I'm monitoring here. Anyway, here is Thomas Paine, and he says, government even, and Thomas Paine was, of course, a founding father in the of the United States. He's a bit of a Renaissance man, as were a lot of the founding fathers. He's an Englishman who immigrated to the United States and eventually became one of the leaders of the revolution, framers of the Constitution. And I think he's, didn't he also do his own Bible at one point? It was like a secular Bible, sort of the stories and teachings of Jesus, where he cut out a lot of the other stuff, like I suppose the supernatural, a lot of the invocations of that kind of thing, and approached it more as a secular philosophy. So no, wait a second, it's Jefferson's Bible. There's a Thomas Jefferson and a Thomas Paine that are pretty easy to get flipped around. But anyway, Thomas Paine, Renaissance man, one of the founding philosophers of the American Constitution, and he he was a nomad gener. I was just looking into that, and that is kind of the thing that happened during the American Revolution. Is that's one of those revolutions where the midlife generation coming up behind the prophet generational archetype actually overthrows the prophet generation. And that's not to say that like we don't have allies in the prophet generational archetype right now, currently represented as the boomers, and the nomad generational archetype represented as Gen X. But Thomas Paine was basically a Gen Xer of his era, and Benjamin Franklin would have been an example of he was a polymath and a prophet generational archetype too. So that would be an example. Like Benjamin Franklin, he's something like the Obi-Wan Kenobi of his era, and Thomas Paine would have been more like the Han Solo of his era. So that's what we're in. We're in a fourth turning, and if you roll the clock back a couple of saeculum, you'll see the fourth turning represented as the American Revolution, and Thomas Paine was one of the revolutionaries. He says, government, even in its best state, is but a necessary evil. In its worst state, an intolerable one. And yeah, I made this kind of commentary before on the podcast, where I see government as essentially a socially licensed racket. I mean, that's what a racketeer does. Is he comes into your place of business and says, okay, you've got all these problems, you need protection, so I'm going to provide that for you. I'm going to extract some of your wealth at gunpoint, but you're going to get my services, my protection in return. And when they need something from you, as we've seen throughout the course of the so-called pandemic, they'll come into that business and say, wow, yeah, this is a nice little life that you've built for yourself here. Be a shame if something were to happen to it. So you better do something for us at this point. And that's the line that's been crossed. It's that of coercion. So when we say freedom, what we really mean is freedom from coercion. You may do as you will, but don't harm another. A lot of people seem to have the whole paradigm flipped, where they think that freedom is permission to do stuff. No, you don't need permission in a free society. It's do as you will, but don't harm another. And that's the line that's been crossed, is that of coercion. We're coercing people now. And so, and also, as I've said before, like the state broke its own constitution, shredded it with the invocation of the Emergencies Act for the trucker convoy in Ottawa, cracking down on peaceful protesters. And so that's the social contract, the Constitution, that which holds things together, that which constitutes Canada. Canada is no longer constituted, as far as I'm concerned. They broke that constitution, and that's the social contract that they have with its people, and they no longer have the social license, the consent of the government. So it really is just a racket at this point. Yeah, we're living under their gangster tyranny. So, and here is our meme for the day. It says, this is, you've got like a burlap sack in the image here with a microphone being put up to it. And the caption reads, worthless sack of shit speaks out about being compared to Justin Trudeau. Quote, it's not fair and it hurts. So, good alliteration on the part of our most base of all V4F members, Daryll Inkster, joining us now. Daryll, how you doing today, brother?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Oh, pretty good, man. Pretty good. Yeah. So, what's all the word? Give us the update on what we have planned here for the big bash. Well, first of all, I'll say that it says right here it's 11 to 17 September. So if you haven't booked your tickets yet, you should probably get on that, because I imagine prices are going up really fast. I found it was pretty reasonably priced getting into Winnipeg, that's for sure. So, but yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about what we have planned?
Well, things are moving on. I got quite a few things lined up. I just went and picked up a bathtub full of scrap metal spikes and stuff for the blacksmith shop. So we're going to have that all up and running. Guys can bang out some homemade knives. Blacksmith will show you how to do that stuff.
That's cool.
And yeah, and I'm looking forward to it. I know him very well. He's pretty good at his trade, and he's a good teacher. If you want to learn and watch, he'll work with you. We're also going to have Brett set up with my mobile welder, and I'm going to have a bunch of scrap steel out there that people can make some crude picture frames and stuff like that if they want something to hang up in their man cave or their shop. If anyone has any ideas of what to do with metals and stuff, step forward, bring your materials, and we'll piece it together for you. Like we want it to be a hands-on thing in all ways.
Yeah, for sure. And you have quite the property and stuff like that out there. So there's going to be like lots of space for camping and outdoor activities, that kind of thing. So want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I have 160 acres here, and the party's going to be out in the combined bush space that I have, as well as I've got a hay meadow that the camping will be done in. I'll tell people right now, you have to be careful here because I have quite a few rocks. So it's not like you're going to be camping on the beach. I'm going to try and work at it this week and get a lot of it cleaned up, like the rocks and shit like that. But you know, it's a pasture. It's not a worked field.
Mm-hmm.
But once you're parked, party's on.
Sweet. So bring an air mattress, I guess, if you're planning on camping out. So
yeah, bring all your own equipment. I'm going to have a little bit of extra stuff that we picked up at some yard sales and stuff, but it's going to be limited. So yeah, bring your own tent and air mattress, cots, whatever you want. If you want to ship stuff here beforehand on the bus or truck or whatever, or get equipment shipped to the Canadian Tire here, I've already done that for Cindy. So if you send something here, I'll go and pick it up for you and store it here till you get here.
All right, too easy. I think I'll take you up on that, actually. Maybe get my tent and air mattress shipped out there so I don't have to carry it with me on the plane.
Yeah.
And but I will be carrying my guitar with me on the plane, so I'm looking forward to doing a little jamming and providing a little bit of entertainment there. I don't know. I haven't polished up my set list. I used to play a solo act in Ottawa when I was posted there, but man, oh man, the last few years it's just been like I'm afraid too low down on the priority list to really get any polish.
Well, but we're not too worried about having any set order of playing music and stuff. You just get up there and do what you can do, you know, play one here, one there. And I'm going to have my good friend there with his full sound system. Yep. So he's going to be playing, soundtracks pretty well the whole day, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for sure. And guys that want to play guitar or banjo, whatever, you can fill in between. And get off the stage and start drinking beer.
Right on. And did you say your buddy, like he's got the full kind of sound system set up and all that stuff? So
yeah, he's a professional DJ, and he's got quite a system. When he cranks her up, they should be able to hear us in the next town over.
So no need for me to bring my PA, I take it.
No, we'll have all of that here.
Okay, outstanding.
And
what kind of other activities and stuff we thinking we're gonna have?
Well, we got my buddy Rob Kraus from Saskatchewan. He's going to be setting up a ham radio station here, and he'll be trying to bring in Skip and stuff from the States and whatever, and he'll probably be showing people how to use it and what you have to do to get a license. And I'm assuming he's going to let people talk on it and call people all over the world possibly. So That'll be kind of interesting.
Yeah, that would be pretty incredible, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Do some ham radio stuff, and is there room to, I don't know, maybe do some archery and things like that? Like, it sounds like you got a hell of an acreage out there, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to locate some archery targets. If nothing else, I'll put out some square straw bales for a backdrop. I don't mind people bringing bows and crossbows if they want, but no firearms. We don't want any firearms out here because we got animals, and there's going to be traffic on the road, and it's just no firearms. But archery, for sure.
We wouldn't want the snowflakes out there accusing us of being a militia or something like that.
That's right. Yeah, you hear one bang even in the country now, and right away the cops will be here and the neighbors will be bitching, and we don't need that. No.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a time and a place for that. This isn't it. I'm not set up as a range or anything like that. So
no, absolutely not. Right on, brother.
And there's going to be lots to do. Like, I mean, you know what it's like, Jeff, when a bunch of us grouchy old bastards get together. You're talking and yapping till 4 a.m. until the sun's coming up. So,
I think that's what it's really going to be all about, is just kind of getting that, socialization. It's therapeutic. Yes. I think a lot of us are atomized and feeling alienated, and so we got to kind of find each other out there in the broader ecosystem and come together once in a while for these things to keep the resiliency up, build the morale a little bit. So I think this is going to be spectacular. Really, really good for the movement. Really good for
that was my main intent, was just to get people together. And like, I'm not even that much of a music person. I hardly ever listen to music, but there's a time and a place for it for me too. But I want to concentrate more on people getting together and keeping up friendships and stuff like you and I are doing. I mean, I met you last year at Camp Eagle there, and we've stayed in touch ever since, and that's what I'd like to keep doing.
Yeah,
that's the only way we're going to get anywhere with all these movements, is to keep it going.
I agree, and a lot of this, a lot of these social activities, I think, are very important. To maintain those networks, to fortify those relationships. We want to be strengthening these communities and stuff like that. And so, it's a community building activity. We can all get together, and the biggest thing, I think, is like you say, it's going to be the conversation and stuff like that.
Yeah, and like, there's other things I'm working on too. Like, I'm probably going to have an antique tractor or two of my own out there with a hay rack and some bales on it. And if people bring kids out, we can have hay rides kind of through the bush. I have trails cut through the bush, so there's and hiking. You can go walking here for miles, and just do your thing in the bush and walk around. And there's going to be all kinds of stuff to do if you like camping. Like, this ain't going to be the Hilton, that's for sure. It's an outdoor camping event. As long as people come with that mindset, they won't be bored.
Yeah, bring your gear.
Yeah, and bring a good attitude. No fighting, no arguing, no bitching. Just enjoy yourself, and there's lots of stuff to do close around here too. Like I've mentioned before, we have like, I live only 3 miles from a great little golf course, 18 holes. They have a great restaurant there. You can go fishing here. I've kind of penciled in a little bit of an agreement with a friend of mine that takes people fishing. He's a guide, and he might be able to work in a fishing trip if somebody wants to go out on the lake here. Just jump in the boat and give her.
Right on.
You'll have to pay for that, obviously, whatever he wants. But
Evelyn is telling Sydney, would love it if you could record Jeff playing for us boomers. LOL, they can't be there. And she said,
"Oh, we will."
Yeah, right on. It's I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a great time.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's I would sure appreciate it though if people are thinking of coming. please reserve your spot. Tell me you're coming for sure, because I have to order food accordingly, and I'm getting top quality food. Like, you're not going to be eating garbage here. You're going to be, it's all homegrown. Most of the stuff I'm getting is from Hutterite Colony that I'm good friends with the guys there, and that's where I'm sourcing the pigs and the hamburgers and sausage, and it all costs money. So I've got to make sure I know how many people are coming and order enough food accordingly, because I will not run out. I will guarantee that I'll have something here. But it'd be great to have tentative numbers by the middle of this month.
What's the best way to reach you there, buddy?
Just go to my Telegram page there. That it has all the details of the bash, and they can private message me there, or they can email me, but I would prefer they just use that if they're going to do e-transfers. If you want to talk to me, just send me a private message on Telegram if you can.
So here at Ryan's Ruckus Brotherhood Builder Bush Bash, is that the best place to come and find you? Yeah. Okay. Right on. Yeah. So check him out on Telegram there, folks. Get in touch. Let him know that you're coming. And
also, I'm working at. I mentioned to you before. I'm working at getting those antique aircraft to do a flyby here.
Wow.
We're looking at doing that on Thursday, the 14th. I believe it's the 14th, but it's definitely the Thursday, because they're booked up Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and they can't make it. I was trying to get them for Saturday, but they can't do it. But for that, that's going to cost me. They need $1,500 just to come here and do a flyby, but they are willing to land at the Dauphin Airport and give rides in those 3 aircraft. 2 of them for sure. Not sure if they'll bring the Gypsy Moth for sure, but they will bring the Cornell and the Harvard trainers, and you can actually go up in them from the Dauphin Airport. I believe a half-hour ride is around $350, I think, for the 2 bigger aircraft. And if they bring the Moth, it's $280. So, you got a chance to go up in World War II era trainer planes, and that's basically an experience of a lifetime. So it's going to be here if I get enough interest.
That would be pretty incredible. That's pretty amazing. I think that you're lining all that up, actually. So there's going to be an air show and the whole shebang. Well, potentially.
Yeah, if there's enough interest, they're going to come. But I'm also working on a couple other things too that I want to keep to my chest here until I get it finalized. But
fair enough.
Yeah, it is what it is. We're gonna try and put on the best damn outside show you've been to, without all the commercialism and bullshit. And it's just going to be a friends gathering type thing, and we're going to have some people selling souvenirs and stuff like that. So we're going to have a couple of little market booths. We're going to be selling T-shirts and stuff like that. So yeah, it'll be like sort of like a carnival atmosphere, but amongst friends. That's what I want.
Not Almost Famous on YouTube is asking, what's his telehandle? What is your telehandle there, Daryll?
What does he mean by telehandle?
Your username on Telegram.
Oh, it's I think it's just at Daryll Inkster, I believe. You should be able to get to it just by focusing on my name and right-clicking, I think.
Yeah, you're in that group there, Ryan's Ruckus Brotherhood Builder Bush Bash.
Yes.
So yeah, you're right in there, and I'll just confirm here. Yeah, I see you on Telegram, and you are Daryll Inkster, and I'm just looking for the username, but I don't see it there.
I'm still learning Telegram. It's a lot different than Facebook for me, and I've had a few glitches on there.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a boomer when it comes to the Telegram myself. To be honest, I try to limit my social media use these days.
Okay, just hold it a minute. All you people out there, mark this down. He said he's a bit of a what? Say it again, Jeff.
Boomer. Bit of a boomer when it comes to the Telegram.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Just when it comes to the Telegram, though. I mean, I did spend 20 years in tech while I was in the military, so I'm quite tech savvy. I'm just not terribly motivated to learn all these different platforms.
No, me either. Everyone's just a little bit different. It
Daryll,
took me an hour to figure out how to fill out a PDF this morning for a application I'm putting in. I'm good at the basics, and that's it.
Yeah, and everything's moving online too, so PDFs are essential. Yes. Okay, so check Daryll out on Telegram there, at Daryll Inkster. And one more time, guys, the group here is Ryan's Ruckus Brotherhood Builder Bush Bash on Telegram if you want to check that out to stay up on all the details. And let them know that you're coming. Please RSVP, because like he said, there's a lot of food on the line here. So Ken is looking forward to some cow tipping contests. And I think Ken was also asking if we could do like pull some skis behind the tractor, that kind of thing. We're doing tractor rides.
That sounds like a whole bunch of road rash happening.
And doings. Yeah. Thanks for the assist, brother, because I was just looking at the same thing. Daryll, I think your handle is actually at Raffle for Diagalon Kingdom. That's
it could be. I think there's different ways that you can reach me though, but just go on the page and make a comment somewhere under general or something like that. And I keep an eye on all of that all the time. You know, I'm not that hard to find. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think you got the right idea here, setting up your own little Telegram channel to get this thing organized. And everybody who's interested, I would just kind of vector you onto that and make sure you RSVP so you can plan. Daryll, thanks a lot, brother, for putting this together. I mean, it's really amazing, and you can see this in all the comments. Everybody's terribly grateful that you're pulling this together, and man, I'm stoked. I can't wait for next month. It's going to be
me too. I hope everyone understands the work that it takes to put something like this on, and I want you all to get involved the same way as that when I did the raffles and stuff. I want people to feel that they own a part of it. Does that make sense? I want people to make suggestions. No suggestion is stupid unless you're intending it to be. So if you have an idea for something we can do out here, and we can do it, we'll do it. Just tell me. And, like I said, our main concern is we don't want anyone getting hurt at all. And we have to do everything right and safely because there's going to be eyes on us, guaranteed.
Yeah.
And I want everybody to leave here just happy as a pig in shit and glad they came and hoping that maybe we'll do it again. That's what I want.
Absolutely. And I think it's going to be a great opportunity to build some resiliency. We got to do this stuff, if we're going to stay in this for the long haul. Like I keep saying, like, we're not going to win this in a single battle. It's a war. It's a long strategic outlooks that we need to be taking. And if you're going to stay in it for the long war, then, you got to take that downtime to build back that resiliency. It's going to burn out. Right. So I think this is going to be really vital in that regard, to strengthen those relationships and fill those cups.
As far as the food goes and everything, I've got quite a few volunteers already that are going to help out. Your passenger from Winnipeg, Cookie there, him and I worked together at Camp Eagle last year, and I'm looking forward to that too. He's coming out. We're going to build you some breakfast that you won't get anywhere else. I'll guarantee you that.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to it, brother. Yeah, thanks again, and thanks a lot for pulling that together. And anytime you want to let me know, like you got some other details kind of solidified and some updates to put out there, just let me know. And you're welcome to come back, of course, as always, and
Sure.
give us the full update. All right, brother. But I'll bid you adieu for now, and we'll dive into the headlines for the day.
And baby Ryan will be there. He may even fly out there. He hardly walks anymore. He flies everywhere. He switched from a big fat artillery man to Air Force overnight here about a week ago.
Right on. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to meeting baby Ryan in person, brother. So we'll be seeing you next month. Thanks a lot, and have a great one, man.
Yeah, you too. See you guys.
Bye. Okay, let's go ahead and we'll fire up the rest of the headlines here for today. I see we got a troll over there on YouTube. Look at this freaking loser. I heard war campaign doesn't like fake veterans organizations created to fleece Canadians. Yeah, okay, whatever, man. So everybody in our organization is absolutely vetted as a veteran. And we even have some veterans that we didn't allow in there because they are grifters. And if you want to stick around and I'll show you where the money goes, I mean, we can do all that stuff. But what is this transitioning over on YouTube here? This is one of these morons who comes around here talking about how we raise money and stuff like that. I talk about it every damn live stream, and if you just Google Veterans for Freedom, you can go to our website and you can see where all the money's going and stuff like that. So these guys are so dumb, they can't even really come up with a new smear at this point. So and Doings is saying Goblin's gonna gobble. Yeah, that's about it. So look at this hair bag. That's a hell of a picture you got there, man. Like, what are you supposed to be, Aaron Raw or something like that? All right. Okay, so here's the CBC doing the CBC thing. Canadians broadcasting communism. 2 motorcycle convoys are headed for Ottawa. One worries it will be mistaken for the other. So this is from August 5th. I'm a little behind on this one, but I mean, I obviously I don't read the CBC on purpose. I kind of do it. I read the CBC so you don't have to. This is the CBC driving a wedge, I think, through the veteran community. But we'll get into it here. I have some thoughts on what might actually be happening. So it says organizers of the Rolling Barrage worry they may be confused with Rolling Thunder. As 2 motorcycle convoys descend on Ottawa, the organizer behind one rally worries it may be mistaken for the other. On and off for the last 7 years, Rolling Barrage cross-country motorcycle ride has come to the National Capital Region to raise awareness about post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, among military veterans. This year, the ride's organizer, Scott Casey, said he's worried another motorcycle convoy might distract from his campaign. The Rolling Barrage is expected to pull into Ottawa on Wednesday. When it does, Casey is concerned his riders may be mistaken for Rolling Thunder motorcycle convoy, a group whose origin can be tracked back to the self-described quote-unquote freedom convoy, I like how they're still putting that in scare quotes, that occupied downtown Ottawa in the winter of 2022. Rolling Thunder arrived in Ottawa Saturday, just days before Casey and his group. Quote, I honestly don't know what their mission is, close quote, Casey said. Whatever they have planned, that serves absolutely no purpose to us whatsoever. Okay, so I just want to go back up here and say, let's see, the Rolling, when it does, Casey says he is concerned his riders may be mistaken for the Rolling Thunder convoy, motorcycle convoy, and that's the Freedom, scare quotes, organization. But then when we come down here and we look at the actual quote, it says, I honestly don't know what their mission is. Whatever they have planned, that serves absolutely no purpose to us whatsoever. This could be one of those cases of, he's kind of on the spot and the CBC is interrogating this guy and he may have stated something somewhat clumsily. But I don't see him saying that he's particularly worried about Rolling Thunder or the Freedom Convoy. He's not really making any comment about that. There just seems to be these 2 motorcycle groups that are doing activities concurrent to one another. And he's saying, no, we're not the same group. We've been doing this for a long time. And our mission is different from theirs. So this may be one of those, smear campaigns, another attempt by the CBC to drive a wedge, this time into the veteran community. Rolling Barrage supports PTSD treatment. Casey, a former member of the Canadian Armed Forces and a 10-year veteran, served in a peacekeeping mission in the former Yugoslavia over 2 decades ago. Quote, we were the very first Canadians to go there, close quote, Casey said. Quote, it was considered a peacekeeping mission publicly, but it was anything short of that. So a lot of us came back very messed up, close quote. At the time, Casey said his community had little to no understanding of PTSD. As a result, the condition was dismissed without remedy. Upon returning from that tour, one of Casey's close colleagues died by suicide. That tragedy became the catalyst for starting the Rolling Barrage PTSD Foundation in 2016. 1 year later, Casey launched the namesake ride, quote, for combat veterans and first responders to specifically create peer support right across the country for those people and their families, close quote. Quote, PTSD and operational stress injury is essentially a moral injury. It can be treated, and it's a matter of finding the right piece of the puzzle that works for you, close quote, Casey said. Quote, it's just a different injury, so it was important for me to be able to raise awareness around that, close quote. So, yeah, all of that stuff is fine. I don't really see him actually making any kind of a comment about Rolling Thunder or the Freedom Convoy, but that seems to be the way the CBC is framing it. Rolling Thunder traced to the convoy protest. The origin of the other motorcycle group, Rolling Thunder, can be traced back to the truck convoy that occupied downtown Ottawa 2 winters ago. Okay, that's not even true. Rolling Thunder originates in the United States, and it is another veterans group to raise awareness. And there was that is the moniker that was adopted to do the motorcycle rally in I don't know why they call it a convoy. It's always been a motorcycle rally prior to Freedom Convoy 2022. So, well, I mean, I do know why. Like it's this attempt to sort of throw shade on the whole effort. But Rolling Thunder is also an awareness group that centers around veterans issues. So it doesn't originate. It goes way back. There have been all kinds of rallies prior to the convoy, but the initial Rolling Thunder was to give dignity back to the veterans and to the monument after Jim Watson used the war memorial as a prop to smear the convoy and fenced it off. And of course, at the end of the protest, veterans were beat up and arrested and drug off the monument. So that was a pretty gross indignity to veterans. And as if that wasn't enough, they even deployed that cow, Adrian Clarkson, to call us all a bunch of loudmouthed ignoramuses for laying wreaths at the war monument. All right, back to the article. Last April, hundreds of motorcycles rolled through the city's downtown core as part of a weekend-long rally that was organized and attended by several people who took part in the self-described quote-unquote Freedom Convoy and have continued to protest against the federal government for a variety of reasons. Neil Sheard was one of the organizers of the original Rolling Thunder rally and said last year the event was meant to, quote, give back dignity, close quote, to veterans. Sheard gained prominence among convoy supporters in 2022 after he appeared on a social media video streamed calling for bikers to come to Ottawa's National War Memorial for an event organized by Veterans for Freedom. That group's website lists several other organizations associated with the convoy protest and its partners. Casey said he was disappointed, especially by their choice of name, when the news of that rally reached him. Quote, I never felt the loss of dignity, close quote, he said. Quote, people that I've spoken to on Rolling Barrage, none of us have felt the loss of dignity as a veteran. We're still welcome with open arms, so I can't say what their motive is. I mean, I would like to get a broader context on that one. I think there's perhaps a lot of kind of setting up that they're doing here with the CBC, it really kind of depends, I think, on how they're asking the questions, and I think they want to lead things in a certain direction here, but we'll see what we can dig up on this in the future. I think we're going to be doing some follow-up investigation here. So stay tuned. Sheard is now in charge of one of this year's iteration of the event, which is on posters advertising as, quote, a salute to those who went before us, close quote. He declined to comment on its objective, which remains unclear, even as the motorcycle convoy is set to arrive in Ottawa. Unlike the Rolling Thunder Rally, which is set to tour around the National War Memorial, Casey said some veterans with the Rolling Barrage will be headed to the Peacekeeping Monument on August 9th for, quote, a small, quiet ceremony, close quote. Quote, when we come to town with Rolling Barrage, I hope that people of all walks of life come out and support us because they're essentially supporting the troops and first responders who have stood up for Canadians for decades, close quote, he said. You know, that is also true of Rolling Thunder. So I don't know. Well, I mean, I do know why Rolling Thunder needs to be shamed and thrown under the bus here is because of that attempt to give dignity back to the veterans who attended the convoy, especially those who were drug off the war monument, and Chris Deering, who was, of course, beat up and run out of town and told never to return. So, and myself, I mean, you know, I was arrested and I'm not allowed to go anywhere near Ottawa until my trial concludes. And it's just been pushed back to August of 2024. So, yeah, I'm a veteran of 2 wars and I can't attend the National War Monument. I don't know, like that is a totally unprecedented condition to slap on somebody for a mischief charge. So yeah, I would say that that's an indignity. It's an affront to my dignity as a veteran that I'm banned from the National War Monument for attending a protest for the first time in my entire life. Okay, so possible traffic delays. At a press conference last month, Ottawa Police Chief Eric Stubbs referred to this iteration of Rolling Thunder convoy as a quote-unquote protest. So what if he referred to it? He's not the organizer. So he added the police force had, quote, a robust plan to manage the event with the goal of ensuring it would remain, quote, peaceful, lawful, and safe. In a media release Thursday, the City of Ottawa police warned motorists about possible delays on Highway 417 and in the downtown core during the Rolling Thunder event. Ooh, scary, scary traffic delays. The rally was scheduled to travel from Arnprior, Ontario to the National War Memorial around noon. According to the city, the motorcycle ride would travel eastbound on the 417 and would, quote, briefly impact traffic, close quote, in the area of Eglinton Street and Laurier Avenue before leaving the city on the 417. Quote, the Ottawa Police Service will monitor public safety and will be present to ensure the safe passage of motorcycles through the downtown core, close quote, the media release read. It noted bylaw officers would be patrolling city streets and, quote, all vehicles found in violation of parking restrictions will be ticketed and or towed, close quote. So it's all negative. These are all kind of normal measures to put in place. By and large, I would say there's probably a little bit of overreach happening here, but with the police department. But yeah, I mean, when you're having any kind of a motorcycle rally, it doesn't matter what it is. This is the kind of thing that you coordinate through police departments, and the kind of services that they provide would be, ensuring the safety of those motorists, and coordinating these kinds of things. So, but it's all scary, scary, scary. Hey, look at all this negative stuff. It's an emotional manipulation. That's how propaganda works, is it manipulates your emotions. Back to the article, it says the media release added OC Transpo would remain regular service during the motorcycle rally. Oh, now it's a rally. I thought it was a convoy. And if there were extended road closures, OC Transpo and Paratranspo services will be maintained with detours as required, although some delays were possible. In the end, a few dozen motorcycles took part in Saturday's Rolling Thunder rally, fewer than the hundreds that rolled through the nation's capital in 22. While several people were arrested last year, no incidents had been reported as of 6 p.m. Saturday. I was one of those people who was arrested, so they'll throw that in there in order to throw that shade. But it was for breaching the unreasonable conditions of not returning to Ottawa after I attended that first protest of my entire life. And yeah, I was like, there's no way I'm going to miss this thing with, giving dignity back to the veterans and to the monument. After we were all beat up and the monument was used as a prop to smear the convoy by Jim Watson. This might be an attempt to kind of make this seem as some kind of disorderly, potentially violent, rally, but the reality is the kinds of arrests that occurred at the last at the 2022 Rolling Thunder would have been things like breaches of conditions. There were multiple people who showed up for that thing who were in Ottawa as well, and therefore breached the conditions of the release. And these are unprecedented conditions, of course. You commit mischief in a city, you don't get banned from the city. That's a very new phenomenon. Okay, it says police also kept the riders 1 block away from the National War Memorial. Well, if that's not an indignity to veterans, then I don't know what is. They did that last year as well. So that's Vintika Anand, a reporter for CBC Ottawa. So yeah, the people of Ottawa, they hate us. That's what we see a lot of the time, especially like the white collar class, I would say. Not that they're, I think Chris Stacey is actually from Ottawa, so he lives there. So plenty of supporters there, but by and large, like the white collar class in the echo chamber, they hate us. Okay, here's Vigilant Fox on Twitter. And Colleen is saying, yeah, because vets are terrifying. Yeah, that's what it is. The people who put their lives on the line to protect the innocent and advance the cause of human rights. Elsewhere in the world, we're terrible, evil people, right? And Leanne is here, and she's saying, late to the party, Veterans for Freedom. Sorry, not getting my notifications, but I'll drop and give you 10. All right, other girl, Leanne. Thank you very much. Push-ups are good for you, everybody. Everybody should do push-ups. So, Susie is saying, shameful what our great country has fallen to. God bless you all. Thank you very much. And yes, it is quite shameful. But as I'm always saying, it's a crisis era, fourth turning. It has a beginning and an end. So, the important thing is to stay frosty and stay safe in all of this. Keep a level head about it, and just keep that in mind. Okay, the crisis era does have an end, 2026 to 2030. It looks like. So that's the kind of mindset that I think we need to adopt. We need to be looking that far ahead. Okay, here's the Vigilant Fox. They're awesome on Twitter, so go ahead and give them a follow. And he's sharing out a clip from the Joe Rogan podcast. He's got a bunch of quotes listed here. So I'm just going to go ahead and play the clip. This is an interview we did with Post Malone, but some great commentary I think you'll enjoy.
Would you ever consider living in another country?
I would have said Canada up until recently. Now Canada's fucking falling apart. All the shit that they did during COVID was just the total wrong direction. The trucker convoy, when they froze people's bank assets.
Your horns illegal.
Bro, they froze people's bank accounts that donated money to the convoy. That's crazy.
And what's
peaceful protest, which everybody's supposed to be all about.
Right.
These people that were protesting COVID vaccine mandates and the lockdowns, and they fucking went after the people that donated, which is crazy.
Yeah. And you can track all that shit.
Yeah.
They track everything.
They shut their bank accounts down.
That's crazy, man. You can't buy fucking a piece of toast.
That makes people self-censor. And that's the terrifying aspect of that. And that's the thing that people won't say. It's not that big of a deal. They gave them their bank accounts back eventually. Look, that's sending a very
eventually. What does that even fucking mean?
What does that mean? Yeah. It's sending a very clear message.
Is Pat King's bank account unfrozen? I'm not entirely clear on that.
That they can fuck with you in ways that you probably hadn't thought about before. They can fuck with your money. They can close your bank.
Never even thought about it.
Never thought about it.
Never even thought about it.
Yeah.
All right. Here's Canada Proud, and they're saying, on a scale from 1 to 10, how happy will you be when Trudeau is voted out of office? And they're sharing a graphic here. This is from Nanos Research, and of course, Nick Nanos is basically a liberal shill, so this is a pretty good sign if he's putting out a poll like this. So, and I got a couple of comments here that everybody's saying nope, it's still frozen. That's what I thought. Yeah, Pat King still has his bank account frozen. That's what we have. We have him set up to be one of the recipients of the V4F support fund. So if that troll over there on YouTube, whatever his name is, the transitioning this hairbag here. I'm a veteran of 2 wars, so I'm not a fake veteran. And war campaign can get screwed. He's just some gamer loser looking for attention, and he got lots of it during the convoy because he happens to live there, and now he has nothing better to do than throw shade and create drama to try to get the clicks, because he's got nothing else, and really has a very naive perception of the world in my view. But anyway, I guess I haven't really commented on that before, to be honest, because I'm not interested in that kind of drama. So yeah, I'll just let the queens deal with the drama, and I'm here to talk about issues, But anyway, so this is the graphic, and this is from Nanos Research. It says Conservatives holding a massive lead on Trudeau. So here is the Conservatives coming in at 37%, the Liberals coming in at 27%, NDP at 20%, Bloc is at 7%, the Greens are at 6%, and PPC is at 3%. I always get a little skeptical around that because I know in the last federal election, the PPC actually tripled the popular vote of the Greens. So they might be a little closer to the Bloc here, around the 7% mark, 6 or 7% nationally. But polls are generated for the purpose of influencing the population, not necessarily for the purpose of gaining a better understanding of what's going on in Canada. But at any rate, it seems that these influence ops are setting their sights on Pierre Poilievre as the next Prime Minister of Canada over Justin Trudeau. So it seems like even the Liberal establishment has had enough of this guy. That's good news. Okay, and speaking of rap smears like the CBC and all this propaganda and influence operation, here's Jeremy McKenzie, and he's tweeting out, he's retweeting Mark Slapinski, and here's Mark Slapinski. Well, I think this is actually a graphic of Mark Slapinski's tweet, but anyway, Mark Slapinski, he's the guy who writes for Toronto 99. I do show a lot of his articles on here, and I have pointed out in the past that he's, he is a conservative. His objective is to get Pierre Poilievre elected. So that's who he really is. It's an influence operation, essentially. And I covered the rap smear against Jeremy McKenzie here earlier this week, where we could kind of see the conservative establishment, the conservative propagandists like Rebel News and Mark Slapinski, all singing from the same songbook that Jeremy McKenzie, they were Fed jacketing Jeremy McKenzie, trying to say that he was a Fed. And I showed the clip from Rebel's podcast there, Ezra Levant. Well, I didn't have the video because that's a subscriber only, but I had the audio where he was like, blah, 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 Jeremy McKenzie, bad guy. Here's a bunch of video footage of January 6th and Ray Epps. And so the intention there was to make this association, at least it's like an emotional manipulation. That's how propaganda works, is it manipulates your emotions. And that's what he's trying to get people to do, is make this association emotionally between Jeremy McKenzie and Ray Epps. And of course, there are no parallels or connections to be drawn. Ray Epps has never been arrested. That's part of what makes it so suspicious, is that this guy is known to have been at January 6th inciting violence. And for some reason, they arrested all these people on nonviolent trespassing charges and not Ray Epps. Well, it's because he's working with the feds, but we don't see any of those, the parallels between Jeremy McKenzie and Ray Epps in any way, shape, or form. It was a straight up rap smear. So here's this rap smearist, Mark Slapinski, and he says, Justin Trudeau's daughter looks like a $20 prostitute. Gross. And Jeremy's retweeting, his daughter is 14 years old. What did Mark Slapinski mean by this? Yeah, I think that's a little bit over the line, guys. This is a young girl. You can perhaps comment on how scantily clad she may be if you like, but try to do it in a tasteful manner, without saying that a 14-year-old girl looks like a prostitute. Especially like, Jesus, man, what, it's a freaking, he's got a megaphone here. He's got a public platform. Okay, here's Matt Wallace, and he's tweeting out, rumors are circulating that Justin Trudeau. So this is about the character of the individuals that we're dealing with here. So that I think that shows that Mark Slapinski is actually pretty gross. Okay, so here is Matt Wallace, and he says rumors are circulating that Justin Trudeau, the dictator of Canada, and Emmanuel Macron, the dictator of France, had an affair together. So I think this is all related to the separation, the Ken and Barbie separation of Canada's duplicitous Ken ball of a prime minister and his wife there, Sophie Gregoire Trudeau, gold digger extraordinaire. And there was some pretty reasonable speculation that maybe both of them are having affairs. I mean, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised. I remember when Sophie returned from a trip overseas, having contracted COVID from Idris Elba, who was once People Magazine's sexiest man of the year. So she got COVID from him, but Trudeau didn't get it from her. And then he ended up getting COVID like 3 times, and she never got it from him. And there's all this speculation, I guess, about how Trudeau was traveling to Europe there recently with the kids in tow and the nanny, but not the wife. So all kinds of speculation. Again, it's a little bit tabloid-esque, a little too much for me to want to do any kind of a deep dive on what's going on with their personal relationships. But okay. Here's Mike Roomy. He's Cape Breton's most prolific stalker of seniors here in Cape Breton. This guy is just the biggest piece of crap that has ever lived in Cape Breton. He's a total coward. I've said this multiple times where he got his ass handed to him up in Shetty Camp there recently by a man half his size because he actually showed up at somebody's house who wasn't a senior. That's the kind of thing that he's into. Is he stalks seniors. He shows up at their houses and does all kinds of crap like that. And then he showed at somebody's house that wasn't a senior, and he got his ass handed to him. So that was really filled my heart with hope. And yeah, I mean, he's a big dirtbag who likes the sexual butchery of children. He's one of those Trantifa guys who's all about butchering our children for big pharma profits. And he's a complete coward. And like I said before, like, geez, it's no wonder he's so miserable, because I got to look at his wife, and she's a hideous sea hag. The only thing I'd ever be sticking in that would be a harpoon just to drag her back out to sea where she belongs. I'm just looking for him on the chats here now. Let's see. Okay, he's gone. Yeah, all right, sorry about that, guys. A little bit to clean up there, but whatever. This is kind of the ideological battle space, and so and every time I've seen that guy in person, I'm just like, come on, buddy, try me. But he won't. He'll never do anything. He's a total coward and a weakling. So all right, let's see. Millie is tweeting out, never would you see a conservative PM make a trip to the airport to thank and wave off the Korean firefighters who came to fight Canada's forest fires. Thank you, Prime Minister Trudeau, for making us so proud to be a Canadian. And here's the picture of him going to the plane to give the Korean firefighters a send-off. And I would point out, like, when has there ever been a time in Canada where we needed to bring in plane loads of firefighters from across the world to help us combat fires? I mean, I could see firefighters coming up from the United States. That's been a thing. But I think the reason that this is happening this way, that we've had firefighters imported from Africa and Korea, they have to come in and help us, is because once upon a time, the military used to provide a lot of the supplemental firefighting whenever things got really out of control. And we don't really have a military anymore. They've utterly decimated it with the vaccine mandate. There's been a bit of an ideological purge that I've talked about too. So that's we basically have Antifa where our military once was, and now we can't perform these basic functions anymore. So That's why we got to bring these people in. So never would a conservative PM make a trip to the airport to, well, they wouldn't be bringing in firefighters from across the globe because we would be able to support those services here. All right. And here is Pierre Poilievre. And of course, this is his campaign video. He says Trudeau knows the cost of everything and the value of nothing. And I think that's a pretty fair statement.
The member across the way will instantly assume that if something costs less, it must be of less value. And this is a fundamental breakdown in his understanding. The Prime Minister is the worst for this. He thinks that if something costs more, it must be worth more, right? As though the $500 million he wanted to give the We Charity was worth more than, for example, just having a passport that actually delivered to the people on time, right? Just because something costs more doesn't mean it's better. For example, government has a housing program. They've spent $89 billion on it. In fact, the number one bragging point they have is that their housing plan is really expensive, right? It's like you can almost imagine a restaurant running advertisements. Come dine with us. We have terrible ambiance. The service is garbage. The food is rotten. It might even make you sick. But guess what? It costs $1,000 a plate. And therefore, it must be the best because it is the most expensive. Now, take this. Let's take this back into the government realm. So when I was employment minister, we had a program, which I believe is still in place today, to help people, visually impaired Canadians, read books by sending them CDs with the books on them. They could then put them in their computers and they could hit play and listen to them. And one of my constituents she was actually capable of listening to books at 4 times the speed because she had trained herself. To the rest of us, it would sound like gibberish, but she had trained herself to speed read using audio players. It was a wonderful program. But the Canadian National Institute for the Blind came to us and said, there's one problem. We don't use CDs anymore. So you don't have to pay Canada Post to ship these CDs to our house. We've come up with a technology that will allow the Canadian government to simply pay the cost of having radio personalities go into an audio room and record the book, and then we can send them as audio files, particles of light through cyberspace, and people can read the book without having to have a cassette. Now, it turned out this reduced the cost of the program by about 80%. And furthermore, we signed a deal with the other countries who have the same English-speaking and French-speaking books as we have. We said, we'll waive copyright on all of our recordings, and all the authors will agree to waive copyright if you do the same. That way, you can give all of the books you have to us, and we can give all the books we have to you, and therefore, everyone will have more books. And because there's no longer a physical copy of any of these books, we're going to massively increase the number of books by something like 500,000 all of a sudden. Now, the cost of the program went down by 80%. Using liberal logic, they would say, this is a savage cut. How could you do such a thing? Even though it meant more convenience, more books, and faster turnaround and customer service for the people, right? Just because it cost less doesn't mean it wasn't worth more. This is common sense, right? This is common sense.
Okay, you get the idea. I think those are some pretty good points. But at the same time, it's Poilievre, controlled opposition, I think. And we're seeing even the Liberal machine there, like Nick Nanos, is backing away from the dear leader at this point. And they're looking for somebody more like this. And it would be, I think, an improvement over what we have now. It'd be a good step in the right direction. But again, it is controlled opposition. So, it's not necessarily the case that he's on our side, especially not on the really important issues. Like when it comes to the sexual butchery of our children, which he voted for. Bill C4 would put any parent who tries to get their gender dysphoria child talk therapy to help them resolve their gender dysphoria in a way that makes them comfortable in the body in which they were born in jail. That's what Pierre Poilievre wants to do with those parents. So that's not all. That's just what I like to point to. I find it to be the most egregious thing. And Joe Blow is tweeting out here. He's got another one of Pierre's videos where he's doing all these great little photo ops with his family, and there's his wife looking lovingly at him, and here he is carrying his children on his shoulders, and he's just a normal human like the rest of us. So Joe Blow is saying, nice video. Now look at what he does now look at what he does and what he stands for. 1, no pushback against lockdowns and mandates for 2 years. 2, pro-mass immigration. 3, no pushback against wokeism and radical gender ideology. 4, loves net zero carbon. 5, pro-Zelensky and pro-Ukraine war. Yep, nice tweet. That pretty much sums it up right there. So we got to keep the pressure on him. I would say what we've seen, I've talked about this before too, is I think by and large, thanks to Maxime Bernier, the Overton window is moving. We do see Pierre Poilievre is starting to kind of move in that direction. He's almost plagiarizing a lot of the PPC's platform, and he's talking about he won't allow any of his ministers to be part of the WEF. No to mandatory digital ID. So I'm honing in on the word mandatory. But at least he's talking about these things, and I personally credit Maxime Bernier for that pressure. And I think we all got to keep that pressure up and keep him, because he's just a political bellwether, right? Like he's just going to move in whichever direction the political winds are blowing. And so, I mean, we can. We are the ones who can kind of steer those winds and get him blowing in the right direction. Raging Dissident over on Rumble is saying, I hear a war campaign might be getting sued. Well, that would be very interesting. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye on that. I would love to be able to report on some of that stuff. And again, like, I don't even think I've talked about war campaign before. I know about all the stuff that happened. The recording of the conversation with Drew, that was a big nothing burger, and he's just trying to stir up drama and get a bunch of clicks. And I'm just like not wading into that, because that's for the ladies. It's not for serious men or anything like that. All right, so here's Pierre Poilievre, and he says, Justin Trudeau, look at the results. And here is he's tweeting out a graphic, source Statistics Canada, and this is violent crime since 2006. So going back to 2006, we see the number of violent crimes. It's a little under 450,000, and it trends downward quite sharply, especially after 2009, where it reaches its lowest point, little somewhere around 365, 370,000. So from over 450,000 down to about 370,000. That's a pretty precipitous drop. And here is Justin Trudeau taking office in 2015. It starts to go up a little bit from 2015 to 2014. So we can't really see exactly where that data point lies. But there's 2015 election of Justin Trudeau, and it just absolutely skyrockets at a rate higher than it dropped initially, and it continues to go up, where in 2022 we find ourselves in a position where we have, it looks like about 530,000 violent crimes, and that's up from the 2014 low of about 370-ish violent crimes. So 370,000 up to 530,000. So that's a good 160,000 more violent crimes than we had before the election of Justin Trudeau per annum. All right. Here is Elijah Schaefer on Twitter, and he says he's saying TikToker visits Japan and can't comprehend how the cities are so much cleaner, nicer, safe, and high-tech than USA cities. He says they don't even compare. Tons of comments mystified for the same reason. Any guess as to what the difference is? Well, I think we know. Around here. Here we go.
You know, people talk a lot about like an Austin, Texas or something, and it's there. When you see how the cities are in advanced Asia, people don't understand the level that these countries play at. It's like even our best, like what we would consider, okay, this is, let's showcase this city as being something. It's just you can't even compare it. It looks like you're comparing like it would be like comparing a modern Tesla car to a horse and buggy when you think of like the cities in the U.S. compared to, I mean, this is not even, if I ask 100 people on the street, hey, what do you know about Fukuoka, Japan? I bet probably 90 out of 100 have never even heard of Fukuoka. And yet this city will blow away like anything. Boston, Austin, Texas, like, doesn't matter. This is like the clean, safe, modern wizardry.
Yeah, and the thing about Japan is it has next to no immigration whatsoever. It's way down in the lower single digits, actually. I didn't pull that up for this year, but go ahead and look it up for yourself. Like, they have very, very low immigration, and they didn't take in any of the migrants from the crisis, the 2015 crisis, and they're going to have some problems of their own because they're in an inverted population pyramid, as is the West, but the West is trying to compensate for that with a lot of immigration. I don't necessarily think that's good for anybody, because even the countries where we're bringing people in from, like, they need professionals as well. I don't know how the developing world is ever supposed to develop if we just keep poaching all their professionals and bringing them here to drive Uber in Ottawa. But in Japan, they've basically decided we're going out Japanese, kind of like the Russians are doing as well. They have an inverted population pyramid where the boomer generations are at the top of the pyramid, and they don't have the replacement population to support their retirements and support that aging population. So yeah, that's they're going to be, I think, in a pretty hard way in the coming decades. But right now, there's a kind of tranquility, I think, that we see there that none of the Western nations are really enjoying at this point. And it's due to the mass migration and the unmanaged, unmitigated immigration. We have border service agencies and borders. These are security measures. We're supposed to be screening people, and that has kind of gone by the wayside in recent years. So, Carolyn is saying immigration, sure. Mass immigration, no. Yeah, I think that's about right. We should have some immigration, especially when it comes to like political refugees facing persecution in their homelands and stuff like that. When it comes to like mass refugee camps and things of that nature, then. Like Ayaan Hirsi Ali is one of my personal heroes, and she actually escaped an arranged marriage in Rwanda. Was it Rwanda that she was in? Kenya. She was in Kenya, and she escaped an arranged marriage through Germany and ended up in the Netherlands, where she was a welfare recipient for a little while, but did a degree in political science and became a parliamentarian and contributed to her society, and eventually she had to flee because of the threat of Islamists who beheaded Theo van Gogh in broad daylight in Amsterdam because he made a 10-minute video with the help of Ayaan Hirsi Ali, and I believe the note that was stabbed into his chest said that she was going to be next. So she eventually escaped to the United States, and that's the kind of place like that those kinds of political asylum seekers can go. But when it comes to mass resettlement of people, it's probably best to find a neighboring country where things are safe, and there's a lot more cultural overlap and things like that. When we're talking about large groups of people that aren't necessarily vetted, and it's hard to verify if there are any security concerns coming with them, it's probably better to find places closer to their countries of origin. So. Here's Michelle Rempel, and Viva is tweeting this one out. He says, appreciate this. After former ethics commissioner Mario Dion inexplicably exonerated Justin Trudeau from what would have been his third ethics violation during his tenure as prime minister, over 6 months after Dion abruptly quit for quote unquote health issues, Trudeau has yet to replace him. The consequences, as explained by Michelle Rempel, is that due to the vacancy, no ethics investigations can be initiated against Trudeau. Yeah, that's pretty convenient. So here's, it's about 3 minutes long, 3.5.
Guys, I want to draw your attention to an issue that isn't making a lot of national news, but it really should be. And that's the fact that Justin Trudeau's government, since they came into office, they've hired almost 100,000 new public servants, except for this one very important position. and that's the Federal Ethics Commissioner. So I don't think a lot of Canadians realize right now that Justin Trudeau has left the Federal Ethics Commissioner position vacant for about 6 months and has showed no signs of trying to fill that position. Now, why? Okay, I have written an in-depth piece for you on all of the drama that surrounded this. The link is in the video description. I ask you to click on it, share the piece, share this video, and click subscribe. So the long and the short of it is, Justin Trudeau doesn't want a federal ethics commissioner. If he did, he would have hired somebody by now. At the end of the day, the Federal Ethics Commissioner is the one who has the responsibility for doing what? Starting ethics investigations. And ethics investigations can't be started until that position is in the job. Or that position is filled. I think it's really important for people to understand exactly how bad it is. This isn't necessarily a top of the news cycle story, but it's super important. And that's why I've written a long piece for you about it, so you can understand the issue, what's happened, and what the Conservative Party has been doing about it. And again, the link to that is in the video description. Now, a lot of you will say, well, what are you doing about it? Like, what are you doing to address this? And now that we have these Facebook news bans because of Justin Trudeau's censorship bills, if you're seeing this, it's a miracle. We know that Facebook has started, it's not complete yet, to ban the news. Google is doing that as well because of Bill C-18, the censorship bill. What am I doing? I'm writing these long form pieces that give you analysis on what's happening in Ottawa so that you can actually understand, some of the things that might not be reported on, or if they are reported on, you might not be able to see them now on Facebook or on Google because of the news bans. So I just ask you to click on the link that's in the video description. It gives you a full breakdown of what's happened on the Ethics Commissioner issue. Share this video, but most importantly, click subscribe. It's free.
Okay, that's probably about enough. I think that's a pretty good point that she's making, though, and I believe I've commented on this in the past as well. Like everything from the budget of the ethics commissioner, they won't fund the ethics commissioner sufficiently to investigate all of the breaches, and now they've left the position vacant. So these are the kinds of games that they're playing right now to escape any accountability. Not that the ethics commissioner really provided a great deal of accountability, like a couple of $100 in a fine or something like that. It's entirely symbolic. Okay, here is the National Compost. Title is Multiple Candidates to Oversee Foreign Interference Inquiry Have Rejected the Job. Sources. The Liberals have contacted at least a half dozen current and former judges to oversee an eventual inquiry, but all of them declined, the sources say. Ottawa. The Liberal government is having trouble finding a potential commissioner to oversee possible public inquiry into foreign interference, with at least half a dozen current or retired judges having declined the offer, multiple sources have confirmed to the National Post. A series of rejections over the last few weeks is further prolonging a process that has dragged out for 6 months since media reports alleged a significant and coordinated campaign of Chinese foreign interference in Canadian democratic institutions. The resignation in June of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's special rapporteur on foreign interference, David Johnston, amid widespread controversy over Johnston's perceived conflicts, resulted in the Liberal government agreeing to consider a public inquiry, which opposition parties have been demanding for months. They actually had a vote. Like, it's the will of the colonists they're ignoring at this point. So that's the will of Canadians. It should be a bipartisan effort to select a commissioner, but it looks like the Liberals are trying to control every aspect of this, of course. The Liberal, Conservative, and NDP Bloc Québécois are still discussing the potential for an inquiry, with one source saying meetings were happening as recently as Tuesday after that could lead to a choice of commissioner. Sources for the story were granted anonymously and were not authorized publicly to discuss progress of talks between the Liberals and the opposition parties. The sources confirm that the Liberals have contacted at least half a dozen current and former judges to oversee an eventual inquiry, but all of them declined. In some cases, those backing away are sitting judges and don't want to step away from their court to preside over an inquiry, but others had indicated they were reluctant to be at the center of a political maelstrom. One opposition source explained that getting the Liberals, NDP, Conservatives, and Bloc Québécois to agree on a certain candidate is already, quote, isn't that easy, close quote. And each time a potential candidate declines, valuable time is lost. Well, it is a stalling tactic, I would say. That's what they do, is they stall. That was the whole point of the special crap tour, was to stall this as far as they can. And who knows what kind of stuff is going on, just how bad things will get in the interim. So, quote, so you start over and you have to ask the next person in line who asked for time to think about it before refusing, close quote, the source said. Quote, you can't ask 3 people at the same time in case more than one says yes. It has to be done at one time, close quote, he added. I'm sure you can manage that. No, they can't. They can't manage anything. The government launched talks with opposition parties on possible foreign interference inquiry in June, shortly after Johnson stepped down. In a report on the issue, Johnson recommended against the public inquiry, saying too much of what needed to be discussed would have to remain behind closed doors because it involved classified intelligence. He offered instead to chair public meetings that would examine the deeper issues around intelligence sharing and foreign interference. David Johnson doesn't know anything about classification of documents and how that works. This is all just kind of novel to him. He's enjoying the novelty and talking about how important it is and making excuses, saying that, we can't declassify documents when, of course, we have an entire intelligence apparatus that is perfectly capable of managing all of this. Johnson said he found no evidence that the Prime Minister or anyone in the Liberal government had failed to act on allegations of foreign interference. Opposition parties argued Johnson had no credibility on the issue because he had ties to the Trudeau family and had served as a member of the Trudeau Foundation. That was never mentioned in the report, which was embroiled in some of the interference allegations. Shortly before Johnson stepped down, a vote in Parliament had a majority of MPs calling for the former Governor General to resign. Dominic LeBlanc, now Minister of Public Safety and Democratic Institutions, was then asked by the Prime Minister to work with opposition parties to find a consensus on how to proceed. LeBlanc said recently that he was continuing to work with opposition House Leader to find a solution. Quote, I'm confident that my conversations with opposition counterparts will take an important step forward in strengthening Canada's democracy and democratic institutions, and we'll have more to say about that at the right moment, close quote, he told reporters after Trudeau shuffling his cabinet 2 weeks ago. Reached on Tuesday, LeBlanc's office said it had no further comment about the potential inquiry. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh said last week that another issue is that still being discussed is whether the inquiry will widen beyond Chinese interference. Quote, we have been saying it should include any major country that is involved in or engaged in any allegations of foreign interference, close quote, Singh said during a press conference in Halifax. Singh said there are credible allegations of interference coming from Russia, Iran, India, as well as China. He said that should be an investigation. Quote, we are deeply concerned about any allegations of interference in our democracy, close quote. The inquiry into the government's use of Emergencies Act last year was completed in months, which was required by the Emergencies Act legislation, but previous public inquiries had taken up to 5 years to complete. That's because that was a whole dog and pony show, to give the appearance of due diligence and the appearance of legitimacy to the invocation of the Emergencies Act. And this, I think, is basically a distraction from Jagmeet Singh. When you start broadening the investigation like that, I think this should be one of those things that is, long and deep, basically. Like you should be doing a deep dive on exactly how much Chinese interference is going on in our elections, because that is the focus of the CSIS leak. And maybe after we're done with that, we can have another inquiry to kind of clean things up. I mean, do we need an inquiry for the rest of it? I think we can just kind of unleash the intelligence and security apparatus in Canada, let them do their jobs, and they can probably clean a lot of this up on their own. But when it comes to the Chinese interference, that is a hell of a lot more serious, I think, than the interference from some of these other countries. And that is normal. Like all countries are doing this to each other all the time. But it's a question of extent of how thoroughgoing and effective the interference on the part of China has been, and it appears to have been quite effective and getting worse and worse over the last few decades, especially since the Trudeau regime came to power. So I think that should be the focus of a single inquiry. Okay, Massachusetts officials, this is Fox News, and they're saying Massachusetts officials asked residents to lend a helping hand and offer migrants an extra room. I'll just go ahead and play a little bit of this clip here.
Human beings should not be treated as pawns in a political game. If you want to deal with the problem, then do it if you are a leader by participating in the solution.
Does this look like a political game, Kamala? Well, law enforcement sources say a group of suspected cartel gunmen armed with rifles and body armor were seen on camera crossing illegally into the United States in Fronton, Texas on Saturday night. Elite Border Patrol BORTAC agents were called out and they searched the area, but by then, poof, they were gone. Joining me now is Vivek Ramaswamy, Republican presidential candidate. Vivek, we're told still by the left that it is racist to want a closed border. So can we then say you are pro-terrorist when you want an open border? Because that looks like what we're welcoming into the country, in addition to everyone else.
An open border is not a border, Laura. And I just think the remarkable thing right now is that we are spending hundreds of billions of dollars of military resources to protect somebody else's border from an invasion halfway around the world, when we have an invasion, literally now an armed invasion across our own southern border that we're not doing a thing about. And what I think we need in our foreign policy, Laura, is a revival of a modern Monroe Doctrine, that above all else, if there's one purpose of the U.S. military, it is to protect the American homeland, to protect Americans here on American soil, whether that is a Chinese spy balloon or a spy base in Cuba, or now armed cartel gunmen or Chinese-made fentanyl coming across the southern border with Mexican drug cartels. Yes, we will use and are legally and morally and ethically justified in using our own military to secure our own border rather than somebody else's border in Ukraine or anywhere else. That's the kind of leadership we need, and that's my plan as president.
Well, you know, a lot of Democrats now are light bulb time, figuring out what the heck is happening. It's a disaster for their states. Fellow Democrats, like we saw Adams of New York, the mayor, and now Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey is having a change of heart. Watch this then and now video.
Do you support Massachusetts becoming a sanctuary state?
I think we have a system that's working well here. There are a number of places that have adopted a status as a sanctuary city. And I think that is working.
The increased level of demand is not slowing down, expanding shelter at a rapid pace, and it's unsustainable. For this reason, today I am declaring a state of emergency in Massachusetts.
Vivek, these people are just shameless. It was obvious from the beginning this was going to be a catastrophe for regular working class people. And now they're just getting it because what, the elites in Boston are upset? Okay.
That's exactly right. Now the donor class that pulls the strings in both parties has decided it's now inside the Overton window to actually complain about the southern border. The problem is it is too little too late. And the fact is, Laura, even the wall, which they actually criticized long ago, most people are now quietly on the side of the wall, even Democrats are. That wall itself is insufficient because they're building tunnels underneath that wall that they're driving trucks through. So I think we have to take the bold step of using our own military to seal that Swiss cheese of a southern border. That's how we end the fentanyl crisis, the human trafficking crisis, the 10,000 to 14,000 illegal migrants per day. That's going to take courage. That's what I think it takes an outsider to deliver.
Okay, so that's Fox News there. Vivek Ramaswamy, he's a candidate for the GOP, the Republicans come in the upcoming 2024 election. Looks like he's going to be going up against Donald Trump, but he's great. I think Vivek Ramaswamy's been pretty great. And I wanted to point to this particular article here because the officials are asking residents to lend a helping hand and offer migrants an extra room, which is the same thing that they're saying here in Canada. We saw that with Olivia Chow as soon as she won the mayorship there in in Toronto. She's talking about, people renovating their homes to take in a lot of migrants and people that were not planned for. That's the thing. If you want immigration, that's fine, but you need to manage it. You need to make a plan. You need to have a place to house people, and of course, you need to make sure that you're mitigating against any kind of security threats coming in here, and there has to be a proper vetting process and so on and so forth. But none of that's happening, and all of the problems that are created by these idiotic policies seem to be getting pushed down to the lowest level. Like it's up to the average citizen to fix all of these problems that our political elites have created. So it's the same thing going on down there that's going on up here. And it looks like, the left on our side is following the same playbook, just a little bit behind. I've always said that we're really just kind of one election cycle behind the Americans and further down the road to serfdom here in Canada. And it seems, it looks like they're following the same playbook. I think it probably all goes back to the same kind of Chinese interference. We saw with the American 2020 election that there was some very clear violations. A lot of stuff is coming out now too, like through the legal processes. And I think the indictments of Donald Trump are probably going to backfire on the establishment because now they get discovery, and now they get to say all kinds of things and go on the record and show all kinds of stuff about, like, I think there was a tort. I don't know if it was necessarily a tort, but there were multiple states who tried to sue Pennsylvania for not following its own election law. And there were multiple electors who had requested that the electoral votes be sent back to the state legislatures to do recounts or verification of the vote, that kind of thing. And all of that was rejected. So a lot of that's going to be coming out now. Of course, it takes a hell of a long time, but it's a hell of a lot less blood than a violent revolution. That's what democracy is. It's a peaceful means of revolution. Okay, and so here is the Western Standard, and this is a letter to the editor. It says politicians excusing their own failures. So I thought this was a pretty interesting take, and I think you'll all understand why if you're a regular around here. So Canada's housing crisis, direct result of Trudeau's policies. This is in reference to that. For decades, Canada's homegrown birth rate has been significantly below replacement level. The baby boomer bulge is moving up the demographic scale. Most are now into retirement age. In fact, we are told the non-working boomer bulge is so big that it's an unsustainable proportion of the population. Younger generations are too small to produce enough to keep boomers and themselves supplied with healthcare and other social services. So the rationale for higher immigration rates is the need to import younger workers to support boomers in retirement. And that is the inverted population pyramid that I talked about there, that exists in all kinds of developed nations right now, like Japan and Russia. They have the same problem, but and they're going to have more problems, I think, down the road if they don't have some immigration. But I think they're just kind of saying, we're going out Japanese, we're going out Russian. Perhaps their elites have already accepted that the last generations of Japanese and Russian have already been born. And, they have similar problems in China as well. They had one-child policy for their Gen Xers, so they have much smaller generations coming up behind their boomer generations. I think it's satisfying for me to see other people honing in on this. I'm not the only one saying that this is what's happening. This is a piece of it, at least. Okay, so and also the immigration is a common theme. It goes all the way back to the Roman Empire. Like, this is what happens is boomer generations reach peak institutional power, and there's a kind of affluence and cosmopolitanism that follows them. They don't go to war generally because they're born in the wake of the previous major crisis that threatened our civilization, which is typically total war. And we have very little appetite for returning to war. And there's a lot of rebuilding and economic upswing when they're coming of age. And they're marked with a kind of idealism, out of touch with realityism. And when they reach peak institutional power, that's when everything kind of falls apart. And we saw this like at the end of the Roman Empire, where they were filling the ranks of the military with members of barbarian tribes who maintain their allegiances to their families, their tribes, that kind of thing. And so you end up with these problems. And we can see in Japan, like the Japanese feel that connection to their homeland, their heritage, and they take really good care of it. And so, yeah, you can expect that we will see higher rates of violence, problems, destruction of property, stuff like that, when we're bringing in a lot of newcomers who perhaps don't feel that sense of duty to stand on guard for thee. Our ancestors, that appreciation for the kind of sacrifices that our ancestors made in order to provide us with the lives that we enjoy here, the freedoms we enjoy. So they don't really have that connection to the land and the country and the heritage like the indigenous populations do, like in Japan. So, okay, back to the article. But we're also told Canadians face a housing crisis, not enough supply for native population, let alone for 500,000 immigrants per year. How can both crises happen at the same time? If the population is now an inverted pyramid, there should be plenty of old housing stock coming onto the market as boomers downsize, enter nursing homes, or die off to satisfy the diminishing demand of the later generations. In fact, there should be a glut of real estate on the market. As well, there should be all kinds of empty schools, empty hospitals, underutilized infrastructure of all kinds built for the massive boomer generation now disappearing. If there's a housing crisis, it refutes the notion the birth rate has been catastrophically low for decades, which in turn undermines the notion we need to supplement the native-born population with very high levels of immigration. If there's a mismatch between housing supply and birth rate, it must be artificially created. Either housing development has been artificially suppressed or immigration has been too high for too long. It's probably both. We don't need more immigrants who aren't even building enough housing for themselves, let alone producing a surplus support to the retired boomers. Again, politicians are making excuses for their own failures. I think that's a pretty fair comment. And with respect to the housing, it was during the boomers' tenure as the rising investment class that we saw housing really skyrocket. A lot of these things changed where, prices were high and interest rates were low. They were getting a lot of people into mortgages who probably shouldn't have been there with the lower interest rates. Whereas when they were coming of age, housing prices were low, but they paid higher interest rates. And in that situation, your debt service ratio is actually better. And then when they became the investment class, we saw, like I say, the whole thing kind of flipped around, and they created this artificial demand. They got a lot of people into the market who shouldn't have been there in the first place. And also, the generations that they got to come up behind, they built the affordable housing market for them. And when the boomers became the investment class, that was when we saw the phenomenon of gated communities come on the scene. So they built gated communities for themselves and sold their 30-year-old fixer-uppers to the generations that were coming up at, double and triple the price that they paid when they were brand new. So that's where a lot of this inflation and artificial demand, I think, really comes from. The bond market, the mortgage bond market collapse of the global financial collapse in 2008 was precipitated by that investment class, that generation of investment class, the boomer generation. When they reached peak institutional power, the whole thing was a bubble of fraud, and the whole system came down and almost had no bottom. And then they were too big to fail. All the other generations paid those maleficent CEOs bonuses while they laid off all the other generations working in the trades. That's basically, again, this is a soaking up of wealth into a single generation currently at peak institutional power. Okay, here's Andy No, and he's on the Ingram angle. That's Fox News again, about how the Portland jury cleared 2 Antifa defendants in No versus Rose City Antifa et al. Following a tense 7-day-long trial marred by repeated security incidents and a threat that outsiders were trying to find the jurors' identities. So this is a very chilling kind of turn of events, but here we go. Andy No is suing Antifa because he's been attacked and all kinds of stuff, and he doesn't really seem to be getting
attack
justice.
Put Andy in the hospital. For years, he's been trying to hold Rose City Antifa accountable for all of these attacks, even filing a civil suit against them years ago. But just 1 week ago, it all went to trial, and last night we got the verdict. After all of those attacks, all of them caught on video, in 5 hours of deliberations, the jury sided with the thugs. Joining me now is Andy Ngo, alongside his attorney, Eric Sell. Andy, tell us what the defendant's lawyer said after this verdict was reached.
Well, it was actually before. It was in her closing statements. She mentioned that resistance is not peaceful and that she was going to be getting a shirt that declares "I am Antifa," and that she is retiring and will remember all of the faces of the jurors. It was a very tense week with a near media blackout because of security incidents that kept happening. The jurors expressed to the court, who then expressed to the parties that they were really afraid for their safety because of repeated incidents that were happening both in and outside of the courthouse. Before the deliberations, the court ordered that the identities of the jurors would be sealed because of apparent attempts to identify the identities of the jurors. So this was the context of the trial for the 7 days.
Now, defendant Elizabeth Richter and John Hacker, Eric, I want to ask you as the attorney in this matter. I mean, their private text messages became part of this trial, but in the end, the jury decided that, you know, what those contained, and they were spotting whether Andy was in the vicinity or not, obviously getting ready to, you know, proceed with whatever they were going to do to him. And somehow the jury discounted this?
All right. So, yeah, that's what's going on with Andy Ngo. There's intimidation of the jurors and so on and so forth. This is a civil lawsuit as well. Like, he doesn't really seem to be getting any satisfaction from law enforcement, so he's had to go that route. Here's Post Millennial, and they're tweeting out another clip of the same thing here, basically. But he tells Fox News that the lawyer for the defense declared she was Antifa and told the jurors she would remember their faces. So that's pretty clear intimidation, and it looks to me like grounds for a mistrial. But yeah, Godspeed, Andy Ngo. Here is True North, and I think somebody was asking about this in the comments here a minute ago. But I'm tracking it. I'm following these things. We're watching and seeing. I think this is positive. The Muslim organizer calls on all faiths to protest gender ideology in schools. I'm pretty tickle pink about this, actually, that the Muslims are the ones standing up to this, because the left is essentially eating itself. You know, it becomes a question of which diversity card trumps the other diversity card. It looks like they're taking the tack that the trans diversity card trumps the Muslim diversity card. But you know, it's a real problem for their ideology. It's essentially collapsing on itself. Okay, so here's the article. An Ottawa man plans to organize a, quote, million-person march, close quote, to protest gender ideology and Pride Month in schools, according to the Post Millennial. Organizer Kamel El Sheikh, a Muslim activist and businessman, is hoping to bring people of all faiths together across the country on September 20th. El Sheikh has organized numerous protests in Ottawa over the last several months, bringing together various Muslim and Christian groups that oppose gender ideology and sex education in schools. Quote, I am optimistic, absolutely. You know, if there's one thing that's going to inspire Canadians from coast to coast to go down and protest, it's the kids and their innocence and its families, close quote, said El Sheikh. He claims that some of the school's pamphlets even directly target Muslim children, such as one pamphlet that asks, quote, can I still be Muslim if I am queer, close quote. The pamphlet goes on to say that Islam and homosexuality are not in conflict with one another, which El Sheikh called, quote unquote, blasphemy. El Sheikh went on to criticize Prime Minister Justin Trudeau for his pressure on Muslim communities to accept his radical LGBTQ beliefs. El Sheikh believes such ideology is akin to, quote, fatwa, or a sin to the faith. Quote, the kids called them out on it, and they told them, excuse me, sir, you're a liar. These 14-year-old kids and, these are 14-year-old kids, and they walked out of class anyway, close quote, said El Sheikh, referring to some children's response to content presented in the classroom. On June 13th, El-Sheikh spoke at a protest urging both Muslims, Christians, and others to come together to denounce the ideology in schools and protect children from the state. Yeah, I like the way they say that, to protect our children from the state. Quote, Canada's built of Christians and Muslims and all denominations. Why not celebrate that? Close quote, he said. Quote, we can coexist, and I think that's what absolutely these protests are illustrating is the Christians and Muslims and most Jews, and of course, a lot of common sense Canadians have a lot in common. It's not what Justin Trudeau is preaching. That's not what Justin Trudeau is preaching, close quote, said El-Sheikh. Quote, I've talked to people in the so-called LGBT community who just say, lay off, stop defining us, absolutely, let the state get out of this because stop telling me I have to vote Liberal, close quote. And that is what it is the left uses different groups as props. Just ask any veteran. That's pretty much what they do. And it is the same for minorities. They use the indigenous populations, indigenous members of our community as props, and they use all the minorities basically as props. And right now, these people are not terribly useful to the left. So, it's going to be interesting to watch the ideology implode. El-Sheikh says he is confused by why both the Trudeau government and the school system seem to be so hell-bent on teaching sexuality to children instead of prioritizing real education. Quote, remember, sex is between two consenting adults. That's an universal law right now. So how kids can consent to sexual indoctrination, sexual exploitation, sexual mutilation, and all that kind of stuff. Kids right now don't know how to eat their lunch on time, let alone go to sleep on time, let alone all the other things that they need to figure out why aren't we teaching math and sciences in school, close quote, he said. El-Sheikh is assured the Muslim communities will be outspoken, that they are, quote, not going to be silent about it, and we're going to be relentless. And that's why we're protesting September 20th, close quote. He also criticized Justin Trudeau's comment that parental rights were in some way tied to the far right. That was an entertaining cell phone video when he was explaining to the Muslims that they were, just too dumb to resist the propaganda of the American right wing. I think the guy who was taking the cell phone video is actually a PhD, so that's pretty rich coming from Justin Trudeau to a PhD. Oh, my husky is doing some talking over there, if you hear that. Quote, apparently we don't have the intellect or the doctrines or the divine wisdom through our 5 daily prayers and our 30 days of fasting during Ramadan to know what's right from wrong, close quote, said El-Sheikh. This is the soft bigotry of low expectations that we see the left engage in all the time. They think the minorities are just kind of dumb and need to be taken care of. So I think a lot of people are getting hip to this now. It's pretty good to see. Recently, a poll revealed that Trudeau is losing favor amongst immigrant communities for his hardline anti-parent stance, leading to a growing opposition to the current government. Quote, we must recognize that there is a new movement from coast to coast that is fed up, that just wants Canada first, wants inflation to go down, wants mortgage rates to go down, wants Alberta to thrive, wants Quebec to be a part of it, and Alberta and everybody else. And that's the Canada that we want to see, close quote, said El-Sheikh. I think that's a great quote. Twitter suspended El-Sheikh's account on Friday following complaints that he had violated the company's, quote, hateful conduct rule, close quote. I'm not sure what's going on with that. I haven't looked into it. But that's some pretty good commentary there. We're keeping an eye on this one. And Cynthia is saying, Axel Hal. Axel Hal, it out big guy. Yeah. He's looking for some attention, I think, but you're going to have to wait there, pal. You didn't want to stay outside. So it is what it is. Okay. Here's Cosmin Dezerzia. I don't know how to say that, but he says, wow, this slipped my radar, but the Liberals awarded a $1.1 million contract to @COSET to create a gender ideology, quote, marketing campaign, close quote, to address those, quote unquote, hateful parents and debunk their, quote unquote, disinformation about indoctrinating kids. And he's tweeting out a screenshot here of, this contract that's being awarded. And it says, 2S LGBTQI plus anti-stigma awareness marketing campaign. Cossack Communications Incorporated, 2S LGBTQ plus anti-stigma awareness marketing campaign. This requirement is for Women and Gender Equality Canada. The intent is to issue a comparative contract with, or a competitive contract with task authorizations. Description of the requirement. Women and Gender Equality Canada is seeking a qualified contractor to develop, manage, and implement a 2S LGBTQI plus anti-stigma awareness marketing campaign aimed at targeting segments of people in Canada. The purpose of this campaign is to raise awareness of the stigma faced by members of the 2S LGBTQI plus communities in Canada and encourage Canadians to play an active role in reducing that stigma. The ultimate objective of this contract is to develop and implement a marketing and awareness campaign aimed at targeting segments of people in Canada. The broad purpose of the campaign is to engage a targeted segment of people in Canada to help foster a 2S LGBTQI plus inclusive future. More specifically, the campaign should enhance inclusion and break down underlying and long-standing stigma and discrimination against 2S LGBTQI plus communities through a multi-pronged approach that deconstructs stereotypes and influences positive change. The campaign should address hateful propaganda and debunk disinformation targeting 2S LGBTQI plus communities. I think really the only issue that anybody seems to have is the grooming of children in the classrooms, the indoctrination into this radical gender ideology that is leading to rates of gender dysphoria approaching 20% or over 20% in Gen Z. And it's like I pointed out before, like if the 2S LGBTQI plus campaign was a legitimate civil rights campaign, then we would expect to see the highest rates of you know, the trans community in the boomer generation, in the older generations, the people that are coming out and saying, wow, I've been suppressed my whole life and now I can breathe, I can be my authentic self. But that's not what we see. The people, quote unquote, being their authentic selves are the children, and they're biomedically transitioning children in hospitals all over Canada, in Montreal, in Ottawa. And they're being butchered into permanent medical patients to give those big pharma stocks a boost. So they're effectively big pharma livestock, and that's the issue that all of us have. Is, you know, it's when you start bringing the kids into this, then it's it's some of the most heinous child abuse that, well, it is probably the most heinous child abuse that we've ever seen in Canadian history. The exploitation of children, they're jailing parents who try to stand up to it. Well, I don't know if anybody's necessarily in jail right now for that, but they have the legislation there in Bill C4. So yeah, that's the problem that everybody has. It's not really with the people, it's with the indoctrination. You know, there have been drag queens around forever. I've been to a couple of shows when they're in adult clubs and you leave the kids out of it. Nobody had an issue. And now they're saying that we're all hateful for showing up to you know, these sex shows, what are effectively sex shows that involve children at bars and so on and so forth. You know, if they just left the kids out of it, then nobody would have a problem. But they're doubling down, awarding these contracts, and I'm sure it's good for their stocks. Okay, here's James O'Keefe, and he says, shock, Livingston, New Jersey. School board calls the police on me after I revealed I'd been secretly recording their board meeting led by Superintendent Matt Block, exposing his diversity, equity, and inclusion, quote-unquote, audit conducted by a mysterious firm called, quote, A to Z. Okay, so here is James O'Keefe. Of course, he is awesome. So let's just see what happens.
You have to respect our policies. You are in our territory at our home, and you are
the state of New Jersey.
You are, but
party consent.
It's very important to stick to the guidelines and policies and discipline of the House. We do not allow recording of our meetings, please.
Aren't we recording on the Zoom?
Yes, we have access to that, but this cannot be allowed. No, Mr. O'Keefe, I'm sorry, I cannot have this conversation any further till the recording stops.
Put that down. Just show you this device over here. This is a hidden camera that actually has a camera in it. And there it is, recording all of you this whole meeting. Just to let you know, we have and we intend to distribute our hidden cameras to the parents of this school district in order to promote transparency.
Well, that was very unusual.
Apparently called the police on me while I was giving my remarks.
My name is James O'Keefe, investigative reporter residing in Bergen County, New Jersey. And Superintendent Matt Block, I read your audit report announcement on May 12th from the spring. We've noted that here in Essex County, you've supported equity and inclusion in your PowerPoint presentation. Your audit video announcement in May, you said you're focused on the past several years on equity, inclusion, diversity, quote, mandated curricular and extracurricular programming, and a focus on, quote, global citizenship. You announced that your school district is also doing a, quote, equity audit. So for those of you who may not know what that is, it's some type of audit into equity programs, and you've hired a firm called A2Z, we've learned. Now, we don't know much about this firm. They're apparently affiliated with Rowan University. Their Instagram page has 0 posts and 41 followers, so the public will be interested to know more about that.
I'd like to interrupt. Sorry, I'm sorry. We do not allow recording of our meetings, please.
So
you are clearly recording at this time, and that's in violation of our policy. So I will grant you your 2 minutes that are left, but I would advise whoever is recording right now to please stop if you want to continue with the meeting.
So what's interesting about that is, one of the things that I do is use cameras to record.
Mr. O'Keefe, you have to respect our policies. You are in our territory at our home.
You're out of your area.
Yeah, this is our turf, man.
And you are,
state of New Jersey.
you are, but
It's not our turf and our territory. These are public servants, ostensibly. This is a public meeting. And of course, I think that James is probably going to point out here that, it says right here on the screen, it's a one-party consent state. So in New Jersey, if you're in a public area like that, then you're subject to being recorded, and you don't have to consent, and you don't have to consent to being filmed. You're in public, so live with it.
Consent.
it's very important to stick to the guidelines and policies and discipline of the House.
And you'll notice that she's not citing any particular guideline or policy. I think she's just talking out her ass and pretending like this is a matter of policy when in fact she just doesn't like it.
Exactly what I intend.
And this is in violation clearly. So the meeting cannot go on if you'll violate. You will get your 2 minutes of speak. You have 2 minutes left, but the recording cannot be allowed.
Okay, so.
No, not yet. Till the recording stops.
Tyrants.
But aren't we recording on the Zoom?
Yes, we have access to that, but this cannot be allowed.
This is being recorded, but we're not allowed to.
In-room recording, you have to take prior permission, if at all.
Okay.
It's not allowed. It's against our policies.
Well, then what I will tell you is that.
No, Mr. O'Keefe, I'm sorry. I cannot have this conversation any further till the recording stops.
Put that down.
And shut the recording. I'm taking your word on this.
Well, we're going to shut that recording down. No one's holding their phones up. But just to let you know, we have and we intend to distribute our hidden cameras to the parents of this school district in order to promote transparency. We care, as a resident of the state, I care about where my tax dollars are being used on these audits. And, Mr. Superintendent Dr. Block, we know that you're one of the higher paid people in the state, $237,000 salary. So if I may just use my seconds to just show you this device over here that's sitting on the chair. This has in fact been recording the whole time. This is a hidden camera that actually has a camera in it, and it sits on the chair, and there it is recording all of you this whole meeting. So thank you very much. We'll be distributing these devices throughout Essex County here in the interests of transparency. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, that was very unusual.
So apparently they actually called the police on me while I was giving my remarks. Someone walked in and out of the room to call the police. That's what they do. They see James O'Keefe, police! There you have it. James O'Keefe reporting from Livingston, New Jersey. It's always an adventure in the school book.
Question. Do you know if they called the police on me here?
I don't know who did. I was just told to come here to my supervisor. Okay?
Just about 15 minutes ago or so?
Okay.
So they called the police because I'm speaking?
I was told to come here by my supervisor.
I'm a journalist.
Okay, very good.
Okay, your supervisor told you to come? Okay.
So there's the police officer admitting that his supervisor told him to come. because I was speaking at a school board meeting.
All right, well done, James Keefe. I love this guy. A lot of people are saying the same thing in the chats here. We're very lucky to have this man. He's doing some great work out there, and yeah, it really is telling. I think the way they react, they start throwing all this stuff like it's our policy, it's blah blah blah. No, they're just butthurt, and they call the police because they're butthurt. They don't really understand, I don't think, the rule of law and how that works. Okay, and who is this? MLI. I'm not even sure what publication this is, but we have Canada's online media legislation hits the buffers. Peter Menzies on the National Review. Canada is on the verge of destroying far more journalism jobs than it ever could have hoped to save. By Peter Menzies, August 9th, 2023. Here's a word of caution for policymakers looking to help publishers retrieve some of your advertising revenue lost to web giants such as Google and Meta. Whatever you do, don't look to Canada for inspiration. Canada's efforts to quote-unquote defend democracy, as Prime Minister Justin Trudeau put it, have turned out to be a counterproductive fiasco. The government hoped the Online News Act would salvage a struggling legacy news industry and become a model to be copied globally. But it is most spectacular legislative failure in Canada's living political memory. Inspired by an Australian publishers collective that managed to squeeze deals reportedly amounting to as much as $150 million US annually from Meta and Google, Canada's Online News Act forces those same tech companies, provided they facilitate the sharing of links to access news stories, to pay for the privilege of doing so, even if the service is provided for free. As was the case in Australia, Canada's legacy newspaper companies, the largest of which is owned by a New Jersey hedge fund, insist the American platforms have been, quote unquote, stealing their content and profiting from it. Yeah, the whole thing is absurd. They don't understand the business model at all. It's just like the article says. They're getting a free service from these people and drawing more eyeballs to their websites, and which generates more ad revenue for them. The tech companies say there is little commercial value in news. They've already been working to support journalism through different commercial and philanthropic arrangements, and say that between them, they provide just under $500 million Canadian worth of access to people for free. The Online News Act sides with big tech thievery with the big tech thievery version of events and compels the accused to strike deals with news organizations using a baseball-style winner-take-all arbitration process to settle matters if needed. The government and its backers have argued steadfastly that in the end, a portion of Canada's $12 billion Canadian digital advertising market, 80% of which has been won by Meta and Google, will be returned to those from whom it has been, quote unquote, stolen. As a result, Meta has concluded its only option is to, quote unquote, comply with the legislation by beginning to move out of the business of carrying news links on Facebook and Instagram. Meta says it will complete the process before the act comes into force toward the end of the year. Google also announced it would no longer be including Canadian news organizations in online searches performed in Canada. This is a total backfire. I was saying this from the beginning, really. I could see this really blowing up in their faces. I don't know if they're playing a long game here, but I don't see what the next move is. They're going to pump more Canadian tax dollars into the media. I mean, they could do that, but fewer people are going to be seeing it anyway. So it's just going to, it's going to remove that influence. I think their influence is definitely waning as a result. Panicked efforts of the government to see if some sort of accommodation can be introduced under the law have been rebuffed completely by Meta, which might retreat from the news carrier business globally. Google is still speaking with the Canadian government, but the latter's description of these conversations as quote-unquote negotiations is most likely an overstatement. Google's decision last month to exclude Canada from its Bard AI chat box launch indicates the mood isn't great. Unless Trudeau's team can cap Google's liability at an agreed-upon level and future-proof that cap, sources indicate an extra $100 million annually is Google's firm offer. It appears Canada is on the verge of destroying far more journalism jobs than it could ever have hoped to save. The loss of access to Meta's Facebook and Instagram platforms would be, Canada's already struggling publishers said in Senate hearings, disastrous and amount to millions of dollars in losses. For emerging and innovative providers, 217 have launched in Canada since 2008. To offset the disappearance of an estimated 450 newspapers, the impact is considered even more devastating. Most, if not all, of them built their business models on maximizing the value they receive through Google and primarily Facebook. This could be really bad for the non-legacy media outlets, True North and Rebel Media. Rebel's trying to fight this, but the thing is that I've been asking this question. I was like, does this apply to Twitter or X app, whatever it is now? Because I haven't really heard anybody mention that, and maybe it is the case that they can only kind of go after the corporations that are traded publicly, whereas Twitter is a sole proprietorship. It's an American company, so because I still have, it seems like Twitter, like all the stuff is still out there. I'm still using it to gain access to the news. So this could really end up working in our favor in a big way. In addition to assuming the accuracy of the quote-unquote theft narrative, the drafters of this legislation were determined to position the Trudeau government internationally as a world leader in bringing big tech to heel. In doing so, they failed to listen to critics who pointed out that putting a price on links was a foolish way to go about it. And while fueling wild expectations of a new lucrative income stream from domestic news organizations, the drafters forgot, or chose to ignore, the reality that no executive in any industry would agree to a deal in which there was no cap on her company's potential liability. Throw into the mix that whatever dollar figure was agreed to in Canada was going to be multiplied by at least 50 if the rest of the world replicated Trudeau's legislation, and, well, here we are. Canada bet that Google and Meta were bluffing. What is clear is that there was no backup plan just in case they weren't. So ML, is that McDonald Laurier Institute? That's MLI. My apologies there for not teeing that up at a time, but I mean, it's just been idiotic. They don't seem to understand the business model of these tech companies whatsoever. They provide free services to these people, and now they have to pay for the privilege of doing so. Well, they're just not going to do it, and they don't have to. Of course, they'll project all this stuff onto them like they're just being bullies, but it is the Canadian government who have the guns. They have the power to compel people to do things, whereas the big tech companies cannot compel anybody to do something. So, okay, and here is the National Compost, and title is Trudeau's Law Society. Exclusive data analysis reveals Liberals appoint judges who are party donors. It's no coincidence that more judges who donate to the Liberal Party are brought to the bench than Conservative donors. And okay, so it says in late June, human rights lawyer Yavar Hamid filed a lawsuit asking the federal court to order the Prime Minister and Justice Minister to fill nearly 80 judge vacancies across provincial superior courts. Judicial vacancies have caused significant and growing court delays, which have quote-unquote harmed his vulnerable clients, Hamid said in his lawsuit. Just weeks before, Supreme Court Chief Justice Richard Wagner told Justin Trudeau, urging him to fill the quote-unquote untenable Superior Court vacancies. Quote, the government's inertia regarding vaccine vacancies and the absence of satisfactory explanations for these delays are concerning, close quote, he wrote in a letter obtained by Radio Canada. Well, they're totally inept. They can't manage anything, so it's just crisis after crisis after crisis after crisis. This will be the same as kind of the passport fiasco when it comes to filling these vacancies. And I think that a lot of the delay is probably due to the fact that they need to hand select loyalists, people who are loyal to the regime, to fill those vacancies. Amid rising calls for federal government to urgently fill judicial vacancies, court watchers are also pressing the government to reduce partisanship and be more transparent about who they are appointing to Canada's courts. Quote, these long delays are symptomatic of the politicization of appointments in the partisan and ideological sense of the term, close quote. Patrick Taillon, professor of constitutional law at Université Laval, said in an email. In an 8-month investigation by National Post and the Investigative Journalism Foundation of 1,308 judicial and tribunal appointments by the Liberal government since 2016 shows an overwhelming majority, 76.3% of appointees who had previously made political donations had given to the Liberal Party of Canada. In comparison, just 22.9% of appointees had given to the Conservative Party of Canada, and 17.9% of those who donated gave to the New Democratic Party. Moreover, the number of Conservative donors appointed to the judiciary has dropped significantly since the Liberals came to power, whereas the number of NDP donors more than doubled between 2016 and 2022, the year the NDP entered an agreement to support the Liberals. Yep, that's what's happening. The politicization of the legal system. I won't call it a justice system because it doesn't really seem to be what it's there to provide. It protects the powerful. It doesn't protect the rest of us. And sorry about the spammer, guys. Bye-bye. Okay. Yeah, we get a lot of those in here. Not a lot, I guess, but a lot of people try to draw us over their Telegram channels and stuff like that. Okay, so here's the graphic. Judges donating to each political party as a percentage of unique donors. You can see this, the Liberals make up 76.3%. Those are the donors. The judges who donate 76.3% of the time to the Liberals. And NDP 17.9%, Conservative 22.9%. That's incredibly disproportionate. Like we looked at a graphic there a little while ago where NDP generally run in the no, it's Greens who run in the single digits, but the support in the popular vote for the Conservatives is far in excess. It's probably double what the representation is on the courts. So this is not an accurate cross section of Canadian society. Anyway, I think that's probably good for that one there. You can go and check that out, guys, if you want to read the rest of it. But yeah, they're stacking the courts, and we see the same tactics down in the United States, where they're trying to stack especially the Supreme Court with ideologues. So I would say that a lot of the delay is in recruiting the judges from their donor lists the way that they really want to. And here is the New York Sun. Title is "The West, unfortunately, is getting the democracies it deserves." It's not hard to wonder if we all have temporarily lost our capacity for self-government. Yeah, this is kind of what happens in a fourth turning over and over and over again. These are the generations, the boomer generations born in the wake of the previous major crisis, who tyrannize us with ineptitude and greed when they reach peak institutional power. I'm just going to read the one para here. This is from Conrad Black, who is a Canadian treasure, and he says, let me see if I can get in there. No, I better not do that on the live. Okay, so it says, at the earliest starting day for the presidential campaign in memory, the United States is settling into what promises to be a lively and nasty presidential contest, with the criminal indictments hanging over the leading personalities of both major parties. Most other important Western countries are engrossed in unusual political dramas, and we cannot fail to wonder if we have all, I would say the next line is, if we have all temporarily lost our capacity for self-government. Not all of us, no. It's the generation that we're all relying on right now to govern us responsibly at peak institutional power, and that is the boomer generation playing Game of Thrones with the lives of the rest of us. So here's the Geller report. Actually, I think I wanted to go to a different one before that. Let me see. Okay, no, we'll go back. I thought I had a Rex Murphy one teed up there because Rex Murphy and Conrad Black tend to go together very well. He might be coming later. All right, so this is the Geller report, and they say evidence uncovered. Massive 2020 voter fraud uncovered in Michigan. Hundreds of thousands of fraudulent ballots. So Pamela Geller, she's been an activist for a long time. She's highlighting the threat of, jihadi immigration, I guess, to the United States. A lot of the time she was the target of the Garland attempted mass shooting, Garland, Texas, that is. She was holding a Draw Muhammad contest. She's a free speech advocate, essentially. There were terrorists who showed up to try to kill her, to try to engage in a mass shooting in Texas. So it didn't go so well for the mass shooters. But suspiciously enough, it seems that the FBI were there to document the event, to try and film it or something like that. But they were gunned down by security before they had a chance to wreak havoc. And she has been targeted and She's a pretty courageous woman, and I've read one of her books. She's is she Lebanese? No, I think I might be thinking of somebody else. But anyway, Pamela Geller. I think she's just a New Yorker and like a beauty consultant or something. But she's been pretty fearless kind of advocate for free speech in the United States. She says, perhaps we will finally get our day in court with these Trump indictments entering into evidence the 2020 election coup. The law of unintended consequences always works in our favor. And she's got a couple of clips here. It says Michigan State Senator Ruth Johnson, who is a former Secretary of State, told the Gateway Pundit, quote, "My estimate is over 800,000 ballot applications were sent to non-qualified voters in Michigan, including many individuals who moved or died, and even some individuals who were underage or non-citizens. Many were sent to people who had moved out of the state," close quote. These ballot applications, if turned back in, would cause a live ballot to then be sent to the address by the clerk. Both the ballot applications and the live ballots were not seriously checked for a quote-unquote signature match because Democratic Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson purposefully advised the clerks to illegally assume and presume the signatures were a match. This is massive. The latest. Now we have proof. TGP Executive Mass 2020 voter fraud uncovered in Michigan, including estimated 800,000 ballot applications sent to non-qualified voters. That's a different article that she's linking to. This is kind of what she does. She aggregates a lot of stuff. So here is the next piece here. It says on October 8th, 2020, only 1 month before the 2020 general election, Muskegon, Missouri City Clerk Ann Maish told a black female whose name was redacted from the police report, dropping off between 8,000 and 10,000 completed voter registration applications at the city clerk's office. The Muskegon Police Department was contacted and asked to investigate. On 10/21/20, First Lieutenant Mike Anderson was contacted by Tom Fabus, Chief of Investigations for Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel's office. According to the Michigan State Police report, Dr. Fabus asked for the Michigan State Police assistance to join the investigation of alleged voter fraud being conducted by the Muskegon Police Department and the Attorney General. An investigative task force was formed and an investigation was initiated. The following is from the Michigan State Police report. On 10/16/20, Muskegon City Clerk Ann Maish and Deputy Clerk Kimberly Young contacted the Muskegon Police Department after noticing irregularities in voter registration applications received both in person and by mail. The Muskegon City Clerk became suspicious when the female, whose name is redacted in the first part of the police report, but then later unredacted, hand-delivered thousands of voter registrations to her office, many of them in the same handwriting. 10/20/20 deadline for in-person voter registration applications, the suspect returned to the Muskegon City Clerk's office to deliver additional registration forms in person. Maish estimated that suspect brought an estimated 2,500 forms. Maish contacted the Muskegon Police Department, and Detective Logan Anderson and Captain Sean Bride conducted a non-custodial interview with the suspect. Maish stated, in her opinion, a quantity of the voter registration forms were highly suspicious and possibly fraudulent. Maish's opinion was based on the fact that numerous forms appeared to have been completed by the same writer, and upon initial examination, addresses on multiple forms were invalid or non-existent. Okay, so that's a pretty good aggregation of a lot of different reports that are coming out now. This is, long overdue. I mean, I was tracking it as soon as it happened. There were multiple states who tried to sue Pennsylvania. They tried to recall their electors and so on and so forth. It's too bad, that we ended up with Joe Biden presidency as a result, because could you just imagine where we might be, how much better off we would be right now had we had a second term of Donald Trump? Like, that would be pretty amazing, I think. Okay, here's the Globe and Fail, and they say Ottawa suspects China targeted Conservative MP Michael Chong in second smear campaign. Conservative Foreign Affairs critic Michael Chong, an outspoken critic of China, was almost certainly the target of a second intimidation campaign orchestrated by Beijing in May, the federal government says. Mr. Chong has been on the radar of China since at least 2021 because of his condemnation of Beijing's brutal treatment of ethnic Muslim Uyghurs and a crackdown on pro-democracy movement in Hong Kong. The MP, who received a briefing from the Global Affairs Canada on Wednesday, told the Globe and Fail detail that he has no doubt that the People's Republic of China orchestrated the campaign. Quote, the evidence is convincing that this is tied directly to the PRC, close quote, he said. This, quote, this is a concerted ongoing effort by the PRC to interfere in Canadian democracy, and it is why the government needs to take this threat much more seriously than they have been, close quote. And Jagmeet Singh talking about how we need to look into all these other countries, that would just kind of spread the effort much more thin. I think this needs to be something that is thoroughgoing, like a very deep dive into exactly how much interference the PRC is engaged in here. They, I think, are the primary threat right now. The federal government is in the midst of all-party negotiations to set up a public inquiry into Chinese state interference into Canadian politics after revelations reported in the Globe on May 1st that Beijing targeted Mr. Chong and his relatives in Hong Kong in the lead up to the 2021 election. Mr. Chong was not briefed on the attempted intimidation until after the Globe's report. The disclosure of this meddling prompted Ottawa to expel Chinese diplomat Zhao Wei in May. At the same time, Mr. Chong was once again the target of a disinformation operation on the Chinese social media app WeChat. Yeah, I mean, they were really reluctant even to expel that one diplomat, Melanie Jolie. Shame on you guys for your racism and stuff like that. They at least tried to distract and divert and tap dance away from it, but they did eventually expel him. So, but it's entirely symbolic. They should be, just close the embassies and send them back. Like, because, we actually have a trade deficit with China. So all these arguments that they're making about the economic impacts to Canadians and blah, blah, blah. Well, we have a trade deficit. So we would be better off if we just cut ties. I don't think that we really have that much to lose in that regard. But a lot of the reluctance, I think it's obviously not because of the economic concerns for Canadians, broadly speaking, but probably more for the economic elites and also whomever is being targeted, the politicians. There may be some coercion taking place, bribery, that kinds of things. So, all right, back to the article. Global Affairs Canada, GAC, said Wednesday that the department's Rapid Response Mechanism, RRM, detected a disinformation operation on WeChat that was directed against Mr. Chong while monitoring digital traffic for the June 19th by-elections. According to the analysis, between May 4th and 13th, a coordinated network of WeChat's news accounts featured, shared, and amplified a large volume of, quote, false or misleading narratives, close quote, about Mr. Chong. Quote, most of the activity was targeted at spreading false narratives about his identity, including commentary and claims about his background, political stances, and family's heritage. It is the assessment of GAC that nothing observed represents a threat to the safety of Mr. Chong or his family, close quote, the department said in a statement. Global Affairs said it worked with other departments through the late June and July to review the assessment, to review and assess the information, although it cannot be absolutely certain China was behind the campaign against Mr. Chong. Quote, an analysis by the RRM to determine the possibility of state involvement revealed that while China's role in the information operation is highly probable, unequivocal proof that China ordered and directed the operation is not possible to determine due to the covert nature of how social media networks are leveraged in this type of information campaign, close quote, the department said. That's true. It is hard to really kind of, it's not like a thesis defense when you're dealing with intelligence. A lot of this stuff is about making judgment calls. It is what it is. The Chinese embassy in Ottawa called the allegations, quote, purely groundless, close quote. Quote, we never interfere in Canada's internal affairs and have no interest whatsoever in doing so, close quote, said Jianwei Li, deputy director of the embassy's culture and press section. Mr. Chong said he was told in Wednesday's briefing that about 1/3 of the WeChat accounts were directly or indirectly tied to the Chinese state or state-affiliated accounts. The MP said he welcomes the fact the government gave him a briefing and publicly revealed the disinformation campaign against him, but he urged Ottawa to create a long-promised foreign influence registry, immediately set up a public inquiry into Chinese election meddling, and provide legal and financial tools to Canada's spy services and the RCMP to tackle foreign interference. Yeah, that absolutely has to happen. And the briefings, I point to this sometimes as a sign that we'd have some good people left in the institutions that are trying their best to manage the situation and protect Canadians. You get the government out there tap dancing and deny with respect to the foreign interference, and then the intelligence agencies are just going directly to people like Blandrew Shear without the dimples, Aaron O'Toole, to let him know that he was a target. So they're not staffing things up like they have previously. I mean, they're probably staffing things up just to have them, be hidden away in a drawer of the National Security and Intelligence Advisor or the Prime Minister. They're not responding to all them sounding the alarm bell at the highest levels of our political leadership. So they're finding this workaround where they're going directly to the targets, especially the MPs who have a great kind of a platform to sound the alarm for. And Cringe Geralds is with us saying, good morning, brother. Good morning, Cringe Geralds. Yeah, it's good to hear from you, man. And this is an individual from my hometown who joined the military and recently released, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about his experience sometime soon, because he stayed around even longer than I did for all of the COVID madness in the military and the critical race theory being pushed on into the force. So, okay, so back here we have a quote from Michael Chong. He says, quote, those are the things they have yet to act on. The urgent and this most recent incident about foreign disinformation about me last May is proof that this problem is a clear and present threat to our democracy, and it is inexplicable why the government hasn't moved more quickly to implement the necessary changes to combat this ongoing threat, close quote, he said. Well, it's not inexplicable. I mean, they're working for the other side. That's what's happening. Talks on launching the official independent inquiry into the foreign interference by China are dragging into the dead of summer. It's been 2 months since the government opened the door to a public inquiry in the aftermath of former Governor General David Johnson's abrupt resignation as special rapporteur on Chinese state interference in the 2019 and 2021 elections. Yeah, it's not just dragging their feet. They look like they're gearing up for an election, and this is what they do: is they drag their feet on things like the Winnipeg lab leak, where we saw Chinese Communist Party affiliates or assets being escorted out of our level 4 biosecurity lab by the RCMP, and we were supposed to have a whole commission into that. There was a committee that was stood up, and then poof, we need to go to an election. So those committees are dissolved. New MPs are coming in, and I don't even think they reformed that committee yet, or at least it hasn't gotten any traction under it. So we still don't know what the heck was going on at our level 4 biosecurity lab in Winnipeg. And now they have another problem. So before they'll be able to sped up any kind of an inquiry, they got to go to this election. So the whole thing just kind of gets stalled. And who knows how much more damage can be done in the interim. So back to the article. One of these delays in establishing an inquiry is finding a judge who would be willing to head it, as the approval of the Liberals, Conservatives, Bloc Québécois, and New Democrats, according to 2 federal sources. The Globe is not identifying the sources because they were not authorized to discuss internal negotiations among the parties. The New Democrats have also pushed to expand the inquiry to include election interference by Russia, India, and Iran. I don't think that's necessarily the highest priority right now. Russia does attack us a lot in cyber, but it's the democratic institutions under threat right now that I think we really need to be focused on. In early May, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau ordered the Canadian Security and Intelligence Services to start briefing MPs about any intelligence on threats to them or their families. His directive was issued after national security leaks to the Globe about the effort to intimidate Mr. Chong and his family in Hong Kong. CSIS later informed the Conservative Party leader Blandrew Shear without the dimples and the NDP MP Jenny Kwan that they too had been targeted by Beijing. So, yeah. That's where we are right now. And of course, it's all stall for the summer. Probably going to be a fall election. And who knows when we'll finally get our full, transparent public inquiry. But that is what needs to happen. And there's no point really in going to an election until we can assure election integrity in Canada. So we're basically going to another Chinese rigged election before. I think they'll let us have Pierre Poilievre this time, but they're not going to let us have a free and fair, integral election. So here is Canada Proud. They're tweeting #report. Liberal Speaker Anthony Rota and his wife spent $150,000 of taxpayer money to go on a trip to the South Pacific. Yeah, big surprise. All of these Liberals are just helping themselves to our money. Okay, here's the Rex Murphy article. I think I got my order screwed up a little bit today there, guys, but bear with me. National Compost. Rex Murphy, Trudeau carbon tax, nothing more than a senseless money grab. Of course, it's going to cost Canadians more than it is rebated. Duh. It's not a carbon tax. It never was. I've insisted on this forever with however little effect. It is a tax on carbon dioxide, a life-giving, life-enhancing element of the air we breathe. Carbon dioxide is the source of vital energy of all our Earth's plant life. Quote, the force that through the green fuse drives the flower, close quote, in Dylan Thomas's wonderful description of it. Yet everywhere in the news, on every panel show, that's what it's called, and the Liberals oblige that confusion. They certainly never clarify it, and why would they? It's lip gloss on the policy swine. Carbon reeks of coal and soot pollutants. Carbon dioxide is not soot. Liberals have put a tax on the air we breathe. Second, the Liberals don't even like to call it a tax. The phrase you hear and have heard from climate ministers and the Green Warrior himself, Justin Trudeau, is, quote, putting a price on pollution, close quote. You hear that phrase and you're meant to think of tons of sewage pouring into some pristine lake or some dread chemical spill into a town's drinking water. Carbon dioxide is not sewage. Otherwise, it would be very embarrassing for all of us every time we exhale. It is in no sense whatsoever, quote, tax on pollution, close quote. That phrase is what the bull leaves in such malodorous abundance in the meadow every time he has a serious stomach problem. That's Rex Murphy way of saying bullshit. And I'm kind of reading this a little bit slow because the turn of phrase that Murphy throws in here all the time, it's like sometimes I have to read him a couple of times before I really know what he means. Okay, so back to the article. They won't call the carbon tax what it is. They call it what it is not. You put another name on something only when you are or should be ashamed of it. What other misspeaks, contradictions, innovations come along with the carbon tax? Well, for one, it does anything, BC has had a carbon tax for 14 years, which, by the way, made it into a general revenue despite all of the holy wars that it would never do that. Has it lowered emissions? Is there any real measurable way to tell if it did? Likewise, all the provinces of Canada, yet not a single quote unquote climate target has been met as a result. The great talking point for the carbon tax was that 8 out of 10 households would get a kickback, would get back more than they pay in. That was a farce from the very beginning. Were it true, it would be the most insane and stupid tax ever imagined. Name a tax that makes the taxpayer richer. What a strange incentive it would be. Half of Canada would be upping the thermostat, putting the air conditioner on in winter, and driving day and night to burn up oil and gas so they could get more back than they put in. That's a great point. Everybody would just kind of fire up the carbon so they could make money off it. They're incentivizing more pollution, right? But the Liberals, desperate to sell this senseless curb on growth and industry, had to confect some moronic twist of logic and reality to justify it. They're good at that. Think of Bill C-11. You're not getting more back. The PBO has made that clear. Laurie Goldstein of The Sun has for years pointed out it is not so and cannot be so. Let me quote Mr. Goldstein, quoting the PBO, quote, when both fiscal and economic impacts of the federal fuel charge are considered, we estimate that most households will see a net loss, close quote. Goldstein also cites the often seen video of Mr. Trudeau in full earnest voice, quote, explicitly making the misleading and inaccurate claim climate action incentive payments have 8 out of 10 families paying the federal carbon tax better off financially, close quote. Not so. Can't be. Never will be. No tax makes the payee richer. And over the weekend, former Greenpeace stuntman, activist, scaler of towers, Stephen Guilbeault himself, let the tax feline out of the burlap bag in a CTV interview. Most households will pay more in that they will get more than they will get back. Most will pay more, said the famed abseiler, and in his eloquent way, quote, If you do the average, yeah, it's true. It's going to cost more people. It's going to cost more money to people, close quote. So there you have it. They can't call it what it is. A tax on the source agent of all lush life on Earth, from rainforest to Wordsworth's quote golden daffodils. They call it what it is not, a quote price on pollution, and they have to backtrack on their biggest, boldest, utterly brazen talking point that quote unquote most people will get more back. What is the nature of this strange bunch in Ottawa? If they think, what are they thinking? Here's what the quote unquote carbon tax is: a kick in the shins to Alberta, a depressant on the greatest source of the Canadian economy, a useless, unmeasurable money grab. Think of it this way: Canada's carbon tax could work as China's carbon offset. Every time Mr. Trudeau raises it, China can build 10 more coal mines. We are, in George Orwell's use of the phrase, quote unquote, objectively buying offsets for China's grinding coal. Yeah, pretty much. Speaking of coal, here's a quiz. Name the recent BC premier who fought pipelines with a frenzy in the name of saving the planet, who now out of office has taken a position on a BC coal company board, a coal company board. You cannot make this stuff up. The leather on the BC premier's cabinet chair is still warm from his hindquarters, and John Horgan, quote, I'll fight it with every tool in the toolbox, close quote, is now a coal mining director. Speaking of tools. Well done, Rex Murphy. I do enjoy his writing, although I do find it's kind of hard to read it aloud sometimes. Okay, here's Ron Primo, and he says, wait a minute, that's not Alex Jones hosting InfoWars right now. That's Chris Sakocha. Chris guy took over the big stage this afternoon. This is incredible. Chris, I was showing Chris here just yesterday, I think, entering the United States. Man, oh man, he's a force to be reckoned with. So this is a proud.
My thoughts are you're 100% right, because with everything they're trying to do to us, their number one weapon is fear. And their number one weapon to stop us from fighting back, besides is fearing, making us so scared that we're paralyzed to move, is division. And in the United States, they love racial division. In Canada, it's kind of hard for them to do the racial division. It doesn't really work very well, but they divide us with religion. They divide us with social status. They divide us with who's essential and non-essential, who's wearing a mask, who's not wearing a mask, who's jabbed, who's not jabbed. Every single point of division they can create, they will use, because it divides your army smaller and smaller and smaller. It divides your voice. It divides your power. It nullifies you. And that's the most important message I want to leave here with in the past minute and 30 seconds. They are going to try to do everything they can to put you in a negative state of mind. Because even if I'm around in every country around the world, if I go nonstop and went to all 197 countries, whatever it is, and we woke up every single person on planet Earth, the moment you're feeling despair, hopelessness, hate, or any other negative emotion, you are now nullified as a freedom fighter. You're not going to act in your best interest or the best interest of the country, and you're going to be unable to connect with other positive people that are acting. So these points of division, these stupid narratives based on these memes, they are all designed to try to turn people against each other, and ultimately to put people in a negative state of mind, because then it takes you out of the equation. You become completely irrelevant in the fight for humanity's freedom unless you truly believe in freedom and you truly want to do the right thing. I believe the only reason I've made it this far, and the only reason I even got into the United States, is because those brave men and women looked at me and they could see that my intentions were genuine. And I'm here because I believe with 100% conviction that I am doing the right thing, not only for myself and my family, but for the rest of humanity. And if you can go to sleep at night and wake up with that feeling that you know you're doing the right thing, well, you are. And you just have to keep doing that every single day. And when we wake up the world and when we teach them how to fight back, there's only one inevitable result. We win, they lose.
Andrew Dion is joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Andrew, you owe me some push-ups, brother. You're late. All right. And great job on Chris there. I had him on the program a couple of weeks ago, and he is just a force to be reckoned with. And I do think, I mean, from very early on, I thought he had the right idea. Just be genuine. Just be he's completely genuine. I think that's really who he is, like what we see in his public persona. It's not an act. That's just who he is, and he's taken the principled approach, and that's what we got to do. We all got to stand on principle. So, well done, Chris. It's a proud Canadian moment, I think, to have him on InfoWars. And I'm not even really I'm not a regular watcher of InfoWars either, but I appreciate the work that they do over there. So here's Noah Chartier. He's from what do you call it? The Epoch Times. And he says, Brett Campbell, CAF veteran ousted by the mandates, tells Hard to Kill podcast about pressure applied to get the shot in the doctor's theater to make it seem as though he got injected, even though he didn't, as a means of quote unquote propaganda, assuming the idea was not to let the other soldiers know about another's refusal. So you can go watch the full episode there over on the Hard to Kill podcast on YouTube. And he's interviewed Catherine Christensen, who's a friend of our program here, a couple of times as well. So he's been doing some really good work on this. Here's a quick clip.
Right from the start, they made us part of the propaganda. So a lot of people don't know this, but they make an appointment for your vaccine regardless of whether you're getting it or not. I told my chain of command I'm not getting it, no matter what. The higher ups make your appointment, you have to show up, and then you stand on the dotted line 6 feet apart, and you're all in a little square box. You're being told about the vaccine, and they briefly label off some side effects, and you go, and I say, okay, can I go now? They go, no, you have to go talk to the doctor who's going to administer the vaccine. I said, okay. I sit down, and the guys, there's all these desks beside each other, and I said, he's like, are you going to take it or no? And I said, no. He goes, okay, well, you have to pretend to take it.
What?
And I was like, what? He's like, I have to make it look like I'm giving it to you. And I said, why? He's like, well, if you don't do this, you'll get charged. And I said, so you're making me part of the propaganda, essentially. So I had to lift up my sleeve and fake get it. He held the needle up to my arm and fake get it. Put the needle back down, put a paper on top of it, wrote something down on a piece of paper, and I walked away. And I had to still wait the 15 minutes in case I had an adverse reaction to the fake vaccine that I just got.
Bananas.
Yeah, that's I think pretty much illustrative of how the left in particular uses Canadians as props for their propaganda, whether it's minorities, whether it's veterans. It's a very good analysis, I think, where they're using them as tools for propaganda. And the line there, I was kind of shaking my head when he said, if you don't do it, you'll get charged. They didn't charge anybody for disobedience of a lawful command, as would have been appropriate if it was a lawful command. No, they did it all in a very underhanded way and forced people out using remedial measures, which up until these mandates came in was basically impossible. I mean, you could fight that fight for 2 years trying to get somebody who could have been justly fired from the ranks, out of the ranks, and the chain would still come back and say, no, this person has to stay. It's all about retention. Yeah, right. Like, as we can see now, that was never really the priority, and it was always wrong-headed to try to retain the slugs, because they just kind of drive everybody else away. So anyway, it's all coming out now, guys. Here is Morgan Mayhem at Queen of Diagalon on Twitter, and she says, thanks, Big Pharma. Thanks, conservatives. And a couple of graphics she's tweeting out here. This is from the Chronicle Herald. It says, Chronicle Herald is Halifax, by the way. It says, in July, 178 people living through the Halifax Regional Municipality were surveyed, up from 85 living outside in November 2022. And the title here is Number of People Sleeping Rough in Halifax Has Doubled. And they're not sleeping rough, they're homeless. So they're using these euphemisms to mask what's really going on. And the other thing that she's tweeting out here too, she took a picture of it says, so this is at the entrance to VGH, which is the hospital, I guess. I'm not sure what the name is. And now the conspiracy theory, it was not. And she's tweeting out this picture of a sign on the door that says Vaccine Injury Support Program. And you can go to info@vaccineinjurysupport.ca, and there's your QR code to get you there and all this stuff. So yeah, all the propaganda has been saying this is a big conspiracy, that there's any kind of adverse reactions to be concerned about when it comes to the vaccine. Remember the narrative: safe and effective, proven safe and effective, over and over and over again. Well, this is where we are now. So great job on Morgan. Thanks for sharing that out. Okay, I'm going to go over to the Rumble portion of the channel here, where I need to drop off the YouTube channels, guys. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. We're trying to keep the YouTube channels up and running so we can keep stealing viewers over to the Rumble channel. Please join us over on Rumble if you want to get all the information about the science that I like to try to discuss at the end of the program and see what's going on there. If you want to subscribe to our newsletter here on the V4F website, veterans number 4 freedom.ca, you can subscribe to the newsletter here. If you want to join, if you're a veteran, here's how you join right here. You click on this button and support the Veterans for Freedom. We had a troll there earlier going, where does all your money go? If you want to know, go to the website and you can find it all there. And of course, it's an official not-for-profit, so we are required by law to keep records and books and show where all the transactions are going. So it's completely transparent. But here is support V4F. You can donate to V4F itself. This is for our operational costs, pays for things like my StreamYard account here. So yeah, we're using that. It pays for the website, it pays for the StreamYard account, those kinds of things. These are operational costs for V4F itself. And then we have the support fund. It says join the V4F support fund to help Canadians who are facing difficulties in modern day Canada. And if you click on there, you can see these are the candidates to receive the support fund donations. You can subscribe to a monthly donation and continue supporting this thing, and everybody who donates gets a chance to vote for who they want to see as the recipient. This is from our previous month here, the month of July. So Saba Vizzi, he was a carryover from the previous month, as was Pat King. I'm hoping to talk to Pat here soon and see how he's doing. Would be great to get an update from him. And stay tuned for that. I'm working on it. And so Saba Vizzi was a candidate, as was Pat King. The winner, the one with the most votes, is the family of Garnett Harper. It says Garnett passed away on May 22nd, 2023, leaving behind his wife of 12 years and their 5 children. He was in need of a kidney transplant, which was denied due to his vaccination status. Garnett's refusal to a transplant center was denied, meaning he wasn't even considered for a place on an organ donation list. Garnett never got to commence home dialysis. He died from a bleeding stroke in the middle of the night. Strokes are among the leading causes of death for people on long-term dialysis, as the treatment is very hard on your cardiovascular system. So our donations from last month will be going to his widow and orphans. Very sad state of affairs, but I'm proud to see that we're engaged in this kind of fundraising. So, and there's also the Operation Pegasus Foundation. You will have the option to send 10% of your donation this month to Operation Pegasus Foundation. Their mission is to relieve conditions related to operational stress in order to build resiliency by providing recreational challenges to support the physical, mental, and emotional well-being of veterans, serving members, and first responders. And as you can see down here at the bottom of the page, you can sign up for the support fund subscription. We have the button set up for anything from $5 to $1,000. That you can have come off your credit card automatically. If you don't want to use a credit card, then you can set up your e-transfer to go to fund@veterans4freedom.ca. Preferably you have your auto deposit enabled, but if you're not able to do that, please use the password fund4freedom. Thank you very much. And I have a paid chat over here on Rumble. I don't get very many of those, but I'm hoping to ramp things up a little bit here to maybe monetize this and hopefully supplement my income enough that I can continue to do this thing full time into the foreseeable future. And let's see, we have a comment here. It says, new info has come out on that door sign. Private company accounting firm paying out claims. Cannot get the info from a private company, so hiding it. Okay, that's an interesting insight. I wasn't aware of that. That's something I'll be watching for then. Hopefully we can get some confirmation on that, and bring the receipts here for the podcast. But thanks to Unkalenki. Kelani, pardon me for my pronunciation, but thanks very much for the paid chat. That is for me. If you want to support my work, that's how you do it. Is you give me a paid chat on Rumble, and we'll be setting up some other stuff hopefully to build that up a little bit. I don't get like a salary or anything like that from Veterans for Freedom. This is basically it's all volunteer. I haven't even gotten paid by Rumble or anything to date. A couple of people have sent me like some donations and stuff, which I deeply appreciate. And I'm going to be hopefully ramping that up a little bit in the near future so that I can be a full-time advocate. Okay, so this is the portion where I need to bid adieu to the folks over there on YouTube. Enjoy it while it lasts, guys. I'm just there to steal viewers, but it's not to say that I don't appreciate you. It's just kind of the nature of the beast right now. So we'll